is a tough business to run for
I know.
president.
You're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is
Real
principled.
tough.
I will take it to Hillary Clinton, and I will whoop her. You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see. I'm at 42, and you're at 3, so
Doesn't matter.
far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
Dr. Carson.
Thank you, Wolf. Please join me for a moment of silence and remembrance of
Jeb Bush's campaign.
I love my dad. I'd kill for him. I'd go to prison for him because I love him so much. I'll give him a warm kiss.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
I was in Washington, Iowa, about 3 months ago, talking about how bad Washington, D.C. is. It was to get the kind of the... Anyway.
For goodness sake.
A cuck server.
Okay, and welcome to the Metocast for the Saturday the 26th, second episode. You know, it's going to be a real pity when Jeb stops running, when he finally has spent through that $130 million and listens to the advice of the people around him telling him to please stop, because we're not going to have anything to really make fun of. Jeb Bush has become the punching bag for this political season. And once he's gone, I don't know where people are going to find their humor from. It's going to be a little sad. It's going to be a little disappointing watching him blow up in spectacular fashion, because it's always one misstep after the other. He will forever be known as the Guac Man, and I don't think you can recover from that. I don't think that's something he's ever going to be able to get past nationally. So this might be his last presidential bid. We'll have to see. Hopefully he stays in it for at least, maybe another month, maybe until January, the end of January, maybe the end of February, to be nice, to give everybody a good a break, a little brevity, a little humor. Well, we're going to be starting off the show with the Pitch a Candidate segment. Today I have somebody coming on to pitch Rand Paul. So I'm going to bring him in. We'll do the segment like we did last time. Hopefully they're a little more prepared than the person we had on last time. I don't know. I haven't talked to this person before. I don't know how well the pitch is going to be. But that's the beauty of this segment. It lets the average person come on and pitch the candidate from their position, what they think is the most appealing about them, and see if they can sway us, see if they can make us want to take a stand with Rand. So if you give me one moment here, I'm gonna pull our guest in, and we'll start. Hopefully our guest is going to pick up, otherwise that's going to cut the segment really fucking short. Oh, there we go. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. We're live, just so you know, so you don't say anything you don't mean to say. We're on the live stream. It's a bit delayed, so if you're listening to that, that's why.
That's fine, okay.
Before we get started, what should I address you as? What do you want me to call you? Should I call you by your handle, Tropic Flames? Do you have a name you want me to use? What would you prefer?
I mean, you could call me Tropic, or, you could call me by my name, Anton. That's kind of a weird name, so.
You know what? Anton sounds fine. So, Anton, you're coming on to pitch Rand Paul to us?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I'll give you the floor like I did Kyle last time. Let you do the opening statement and tell us what you think we need to know about Rand Paul as a politician and why we should be interested in him for the Republican nomination.
Okay. Let's start off by saying, when I first messaged you, right, you told me you didn't want to vote. You said, I don't care about voting for either the church sandwich or the giant douche. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
But, it's not always like that. No matter how much you hate both candidates, there's always a third alternative. There's always somebody else below the belt that has amazing policy and views that you're just blinded to it because of media attention and whatever. Like Trump. Let's start off with Trump. All right, let's start off with Trump.
Okay, sounds good.
Mr. Trump, I see a lot of his tweets all over. I go on poll every day. I see, oh look, Trump said this, Trump said that. But I've never seen anybody actually quote what his actual policies are. You know.
At most, I believe I've heard.
Build wall. Yeah, build wall. 2016. Fuck the immigrants. 2016. Make America great.
Well,
and,
as far as his policies, yeah, it would be. I think most people are familiar. I think you're correct in that he wants to build a wall, that he's got an immigration stance, and I think some people have heard his tax ideas because he did put that out there. But aside from that, you're pretty much accurate. Not a lot of people know what his political positions are.
About it. Yeah.
Okay.
After looking through, all the presidential candidates, I see Trump, and I see him going, I want America to be great again. I want all the people who are, halfway at the door, all these big guy CEOs who are halfway at the door to be staying with America. And, his policy is, I'll cut down government taxes. I'll remove this. I'll remove that. But, he's not, nothing is clear about that, honestly.
So you feel that Trump isn't, he's saying a lot of grandiose things, but he's not really giving any methodology
really
or
have
details.
Anything set in place that, you can actually latch onto.
Okay.
Out of all the candidates, like my favorite, again, is this flat tax, 14.5%. That's removing a shitload of taxes. That's removing, it's called the fair and flat tax, first of all. And it's removing about 90% of basically all of IRS. And that's saying a lot. Not only that, it's removing loopholes. It's removing a bunch of federal taxes, payroll tax on workers. That's a $2 trillion tax cut.
Okay. Let's let's talk about that. We'll as we go along, you can talk about kind of the other candidates' positions and how I guess Rand stacks up to that. Now you mentioned the 14.5 fair and flat tax. That's one of that's a plank in Rand Paul's platform, correct?
I think that's a centerfold, actually.
Okay, so that's kind of the that's a center pole around which his tent is built. That's the thing he's drawing people in with. Can you go into a little more detail about it? So he wants to implement a 14.5% flat tax across the board.
That's correct.
What are the implications for that? How does that affect the tax system in place? How does that affect the revenue generated for the U.S. government? How does it impede? How does this relate to our national debt? Those kind of details. What has he said about that?
All right, let's start off with saying that for the 14.5 for the income tax, right? That's going to remove a bunch of loopholes. Americans are going to pay less taxes, and a family who makes less than $50,000 a year will not be taxed. That means that dumbass NEET who doesn't work or anything will not get tax benefits just because he doesn't make any money.
Wait, so
it has to be a family.
When you say they won't be taxed, and then you say tax benefits, so is it both? Anybody under $50,000 is paying no taxes whatsoever?
If a family makes less than $50,000 a year, they will not be taxed for the 14.5%.
What will they be taxed at?
It's just going to be basic, like mortgages stuff. That's about it.
So we're talking income tax is what you're referring to.
Basically income tax.
Okay. And so this is the one, I guess, to be fair, when we're talking the 14.5 flat tax, that's all it's in relation to is income tax. It's not any other kind of taxes. The IRS will still function as it does.
No.
Oh, okay.
Of course not. The IRS is going to be basically removed.
Okay, so he wants to remove the IRS.
That's it, because I think about it like this. The simpler a federal revenue budget tax, whatever, can be made, like the more simpler it gets, the more easier it will be to implement it.
Okay.
The less loopholes it has, the more like you can't fuck around with something that doesn't have anything to it. If you can understand that a bit.
Oh, okay, so what you're trying to say, or at least what I understand you to be saying, is he wants to simplify the system. He wants just to say, here's a flat tax. Let's get away from the married and what is it? Married, married with kids, divorced, widower with child, single. He wants to get rid of all these different brackets. He wants to reform the tax system itself, and his centerfold for doing that is this notion of a flat tax, and if you make under 50,000, and does that apply to single people or only families?
Only families.
Only families. And how
Because
many?
a lot of single people, they take advantage of that, and that need who doesn't really make that much, he's gonna take advantage of all the loopholes that he can get.
Okay. And how many families in the U.S. right now currently paying taxes are under that $50,000 threshold? What are we looking at as far as an impact for income taxes to the nation?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how much families are how many families there are in the United States at the moment.
Well, no. What I'm asking is, under the current tax system, what would the difference be? Let's say Rand Paul comes into office tomorrow and he implements his flat tax. What are we looking at as far as a difference? How much less money is the U.S. government taking in compared to yesterday before Rand Paul because of this many families affected that are under that $50,000 threshold?
All right, but it's first of all, they'll see their incomes go up, right?
Oh,
Taxpayers in the income groups between 20,000 and 75,000 are going to see their incomes go up by 14%. Those that have incomes above 500,000 would see their incomes go up by 20%, right?
Well, no, that's just kind of why I'm asking the basic questions. I'm just kind of curious, I guess, what the impact is going to be, because the U.S. government takes in this income tax to basically fund itself to do different programs to fund different things. So what are we looking at? How much do we have to make up in, I guess, other ways, or what programs would we have to cut because we're going to be this much less than what we have today?
Okay, it's going to be about 2.9 trillion less over the course of the decade, according to the Tax Foundation.
2.9 trillion less. So 290 million, or I'm sorry, 290 billion per year, essentially.
Right, but again, that's still a lot better compared to most other candidates. It's basically the alternative between getting. I guess we're going to see our GDP go down. That's a fact. But people are going to start saving more. People are going to stop spending more because, again, they're going to see our numbers. They're going to say, "Oh shit, we're kind of going bad. Maybe I shouldn't buy that new whatever $100,000 car." But little by little, it's going to keep going up. That's going to be 1.4 million additional jobs over a decade. That's going to be about 10,000 jobs a month.
Okay, and this number, this estimate, I guess, from Rand Paul, what is he basing that on? He's saying we're going to have this many more jobs. Is that based on just the notion that people will have more money to invest, or does he have some kind of a factor figure?
Again, what's our current stance in terms of how much a corporation has to pay to stay in the United States, right?
Okay, off the top of my head, I would not know that.
39%.
Okay, and that's how much they're getting taxed, right? Yes.
That's how much they're going to get. That's how much they're getting hit tax currently.
Okay.
That's way above. That means we're somewhere around the third highest, right? Of charging corporations for tax.
You're talking internationally, so the U.S. was ranked third. Okay.
Right. That's compared to something like Canada, right? Canada has about a 15%.
Okay.
And 1% state tax. That's 16% in total.
Okay. Now, when you're talking,
all these companies jumping ship, like currently here.
Wait, Anton, let me just clear this up really quick. So we're talking about income tax. We're talking about the flat rate of 14% for families and for just taxpayers in general.
14.5%, not only for families, for corporations as well.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clear up. So it's a 14% across the board. It's people and corporations.
Corporations are counted as people, I believe.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure, so because people listening might think we're just referring to income tax for citizens, but we're actually talking about 14.5% for everything, for people, for corporations. Is there a limit? Has he stated you have to make this much money to be able to apply for it? You have to be this big of a corporation to be hit by it, or is it just fuck it? Everybody's going to get 14.5.
Everybody's equal under the eyes of Rand. Under the eyes of Rand.
Okay.
And we see all these corporations here, like I linked you, Imgur, right there, of corporations who are moving to places where they can get these tax benefits. You know, Burger King. Burger King is an iconic American brand. When I was little, everybody knew Burger King. I used to eat a Burger King. I bet you ate a Burger King. Everybody in America has probably eaten a Burger King, right?
Yep, I've definitely eaten a Burger King. I know what you mean. It's kind of it's the Coca-Cola to the Pepsi that is McDonald's. It's kind of out there. Everybody knows it. It's a fast food chain that people are familiar with.
And Burger King, it's fed up. It's fed up, and it's moving to Canada. And Canada is 76 cents to a dollar right now, right? That's terrible. But Burger King would rather take that 76 cents to a dollar
hmm
than deal with America's corporate tax laws that are currently set in place.
Now this screen cap that you'd sent me, and I'll try to get it up on screen if I can, but it says Burger King moves to Canada, could save it $275 million in taxes. It's from Reuters, and it's just
$275 million in taxes.
right, and it's from the 11th of this month.
It's a bit older, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
the
last
plan is
year.
still set in
Yep,
place.
the 11th of December last year. My bad. So they've already done this move then.
They're basically halfway out the door. They have one foot in Canada, and they just have to finalize all the stuff.
So what are they doing exactly? Are they moving their corporate headquarters? Are they reorganizing as a Canadian company rather than an American company?
That's correct.
Which is correct? Which one of the two?
They're moving entirely to Canada.
Entirely. So are the franchises?
Of course, some franchises are still going to stay in America, but for how long? Like, would they rather take the hit here?
Okay, and so they feel that the corporate tax savings are going to be enough to justify the move and shutting down shop in the U.S. and moving to Canada with a smaller population, so smaller potential customer pool.
Well, I can't say smaller, but they believe it is. They believe that they can get a lot more in Canada, despite being 76 cents to a dollar.
Okay.
Than they could of paying a shitload of taxes that are currently set in place in America.
And you said it was, I believe, 39% they were getting hit with in the U.S. What is the Canadian rate, or what does that break down to if they're saving the 275? Do you know?
I believe the Canadian is about 15% and 1% for the current region. That's like state tax.
So 16 generally.
16%.
Okay, and so under Rand Paul's plan, we could see a Burger King coming back to the U.S. is basically what you're saying.
Of course, with 14.5%. I wouldn't be surprised if every single company would move to America. And not every single company, but most. That puts us way, way better than about three-fourths of the world, if not more.
Okay. And
the 14.5% plan.
All right, so we've got, and I believe you said it was $2.9 trillion would be the savings, so that'd be $2.9 trillion over a decade that we'd see less. Now, does that include the corporations too, that we're going to be seeing less revenue coming from, or does that just focus on the families?
That's just like the worst case scenario.
Okay, but I mean, does that address everybody, or is it just the families, or just citizens?
It's going to be everybody.
Everybody. Okay. So has he addressed? I mean, don't get me wrong. Less taxes. Who's going to argue against that? But when we're looking at the less,
for starters.
well, right. But I mean, when you're looking at 290 billion less per year. Okay, so what is his next step in that plan, or how does he address that shortfall? What kind of programs are we looking at? Like, okay, we're going to have to decrease funding here. We're going to have to, deficit spend more here. How is he going to make that up under what we're currently operating under?
Do you know how many useless people we have currently set in place in government?
Well, I mean, you talked about generating jobs, but if he's shutting down the IRS, how many people employed there are not going to be unemployed?
Well, they're probably going to move to different sectors of government. Like, people on our IRS have they have the education needed to work with Rand Paul and working on this 14.5%.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I mean, that wouldn't be.
You can easily transfer to governmental sectors. So.
Okay, let's set that aside.
Laying off all these people working on IRS, they can be easily transferred to work on something else.
Okay, Anton, let's put that aside. Let's say the people in the IRS. Let's say he does minimize the IRS or even eliminate it somehow, and these people are able to find jobs somewhere else. The only thing that's concerning to me, and again, this is I'm my opinion here when I'm doing this segment is just simply I'm uninformed. I don't know about the candidate. I don't know about their policies, so I'm just going to ask you the questions that would come to mind. I would think an average person might ask. So, we're talking about saving money. That's great. We're talking about paying less taxes. Awesome. I don't want to pay a lot of taxes. We're going to bring more companies back to the U.S. How can that be a bad thing? We're going to, make it attractive to want to do business here. That sounds fantastic too. But I do know that the U.S. government spends an awful lot of money on multiple programs. Now, I mean, you can kind of give me an answer and say, well, there are a lot of useless people in government, but we're already saying the IRS people are going to go to other government sectors. So where would that shortfall be cut? I mean, that is 290 billion. That's a fairly sizable chunk per year that we're not getting now. So it's got to affect something. It's got to hit some kind of program. Are we going to be hitting Social Security? Are we going to hit Medicare? Are we going to hit defense spending, infrastructure?
Well,
What are we
defense
looking at?
spending is a de facto that's going to get hit, of course.
Okay, let's move to that then. Let's transition to that. Now, what is Rand Paul's? I guess I know a lot about his father. Obviously, a lot of people do. What is his
But
position?
that's such an unfair comparison. He's not his father.
No,
His
no, no.
father
What I'm
was-
saying is, I know his father's positions when it comes to international activity, defense spending, that kind of stuff. So tell me what Rand Paul's are. I mean, how do they differ from his father? What are his positions? Are they the same? Are they different? You explain it to me. What is his position on defense spending, on international relations, on military intervention? Just kind of give me the cliff notes, if you could, on that.
Well, unlike candidates such as who wanted to for the regime change, Rubio, right? Rubio wanted a regime change with Assad.
He wanted to
Assad-
go into Syria. You're talking about Rubio wanted to go into Syria and basically oust Assad and put somebody else in place.
right.
Okay.
That's a terrible plan. ISIS is going to take over. It's going to be bad for everybody. What Rand said is, I don't know how much you can believe in it because again, it's just the word of a politician. You can't exactly make that all happen in a day or two. But he wants to remove current American intervention in Syria. I believe that's a very good plan.
So he wants to completely withdraw.
Completely remove all American intervention. It's not our war. It's not our problem. It's not our business.
Now, how does he, I guess, reconcile that with? We have seen an increase. I think it's fair to say an increase in terrorist activity, at least in the last couple of months. We had what happened in Paris, which was directly linked to ISIS. We had we had. Yeah, again, I agree. We had what happened in San Bernardino, and it looks like the people involved in that, the couple involved in that. We're talking not just with people from Syria, but people from all over the place in different terrorist networks. So, he wants to withdraw because it's not our issue. But in a way, it sort of is. I mean, if we have homegrown terrorist activity in the U.S., like we had in San Bernardino, so how does he address it, I guess, is what I'm saying. If he doesn't want to fight it over there, is he going to fight it over here? Does he have a
Well,
plan?
if he removes all these kids who are fighting our war in Syria, that's going to be a lot more people inside American borders who can protect American borders. That's going to be an influx of police officers, an influx of military structure, influx of basically domestic, homegrown, fighters, basically.
Well, okay, let me rephrase this, I guess. Okay, so we pull our military intervention away from the Middle East. We get out of these countries that we really don't have any business being in. At least that's Rand Paul's standpoint. And so we're dealing just with the U.S. Now we've had these attacks that have happened, San Bernardino, and potentially we could have more. I don't know. Maybe there'll be another one. Maybe there won't. But there is a potential for it to happen. So,
Of course, but the potential is the more we intervene, the more it's going to happen here.
okay, but doesn't this get into the, I guess, the argument that the ideology of our opponent isn't based on they don't hate America because we're in Syria. They hate America because of Western values, because it's different from what they perceive as how the world should be run. Groups like ISIS want Sharia law. Groups like ISIS want an international,
Like you're
worldwide
saying this,
caliphate.
If we remove all of these people from Syria, then nobody's going to be left to fight ISIS. When currently we have tons of Russian troops who are doing their best, to fight ISIS, to remove ISIS and keep Assad in power.
But when you're looking at geopolitics, so doesn't this set up an issue? If you pull out completely militarily, let's say, and you're not in Syria, you don't fight them over there. So we're going to let the Russians do it, or we'll let the Chinese intervene, because I know the Chinese president had made statements regarding ISIS and kind of his viewpoint on it and wanting to get a little more hands-on. But you let these foreign countries essentially go into other nations and they remove a power. How do we then make sure, or how are we how are we ensuring that we're not going to have more puppet states? I mean, you look at kind of the 80s with the Cold War, and even before then, it was geopolitics. It was a game of chess. One country would move into an area, there'd be a regime change, and they'd install their own little puppet. So if we're saying we're going to let the Russians do it, or we're going to let the Chinese do it, or we're going to let God, maybe the French will do it. How do we ensure that they're not setting up a new power structure in the Middle East, in Europe, in Africa, where it's all run? Where Putin says, "I'm going to clear up the problem in Syria, and now it's a Russian territory. And you know what? Maybe I'm going to go to Chad. Maybe I'm going to go to Nigeria. Maybe I'll go to Liberia. Maybe the Ukraine needs to be relooked at because hey, ISIS is over there. America has pulled its military presence out. We're not there really to do anything anymore. We don't have any say. So, do you see the potential risks for that?
Okay, but what are we currently doing? Are we currently helping Syria? Like, are we currently, because we're supplying all these weapons to these fighters? Are we currently helping them? Are we currently helping to stop the conflict? Like,
Right now, no. I'd say that our foreign policy in regards to Syria is ass backwards. We talked just a second, and this is kind of a little bit off the beaten path, but we're talking about kind of what we're doing in Syria, and you'd mentioned Trump and kind of his positions on different things. He did bring up one interesting point on MSNBC, which was we have relationships with foreign powers which are directly funding or directly related to the terrorist groups which are currently plaguing the world. I mean, he brought up Saudi Arabia, and it looked like he might have even wanted to bring up Israel. So we have these different countries out there that seem to have. So if we're not going to militarily intervene, are we still going to have relationships with groups like Saudi Arabia? I mean, if our idea is let's get hands off, let's not get involved with any of this. It's foreign. It doesn't matter to us. It's not our fight. Are we also going to say, hey, because they're involved, we can't really have a relationship with them? I'm trying to get a better grasp or better understanding of kind of how Rand Paul would position America to deal with the international community.
listen, I would rather take a puppet state at this current moment than continue fighting with what we have right now, because it's not ideal what we're doing right now. I'm not saying in the future, sure, every terrorist is going to, Russia's going to take over Ukraine, sure, we'll let them. Russia's going to take over China, sure, we'll let them. That's not going to happen. But currently, what we're doing right now in Syria, it's not. I would rather take the puppet state. I don't want to see any more influx of refugees in Europe. I don't want to see any more influx of refugees in Canada. I don't want to see more refugees in America as well. I don't want to see that. I would rather.
Wait,
I
you
would
want to
rather
see
a
or you
puppet
don't
state.
want to see?
That's not something I want to see
Okay.
in the current time.
Well, how do we know that allowing these foreign powers to intervene? Let's say Russia goes in and they're able to mop up ISIS, and let's say even they don't oust Assad, or they don't set up a puppet state, or they don't keep a military presence. They go in, they kick ass, they leave. Everything's great. Everybody loves it. How do we know that's going to stop this influx of immigration? I guess that segues into the next point. What is Rand Paul's position on immigration? What does he feel? Because that's been in the news a lot. We're talking about, was it 10 to 40,000 Syrian refugees coming into the U.S. and the states are fighting it. So, what is Rand Paul's position on immigration and the recent Syrian influx into the U.S.?
Oh, it's basically almost the same as Trump's, except it doesn't have as much media attention. It's basically, if you can get in here legally, sure, go ahead. If you can't, get out. You can't. We don't support illegal immigration.
Okay, because
Rand Paul doesn't support legal immigration. If you
Okay.
can get in here legally, sure, go ahead. But we're not gonna bend over backwards to take all these refugees in.
Well, it wasn't one of the issues that was raised on the campaign trail by a couple of different people in regards to, because I believe with San Bernardino, the terrorist wife was a foreigner that got in on a visa program. She did it legally.
Don't. That's all. I'm glad you mentioned the visa program.
Okay.
I'm gonna show you a little link over here.
Okay.
If you can get that up, I want even the chat to watch this, because this is how much I believe that the government is, useless in what they're doing currently. I'm not in support of quotas as you call them.
Okay. I'm having a little issue. OBS can be a bit finicky, but I can get the audio to play. So I'll let it's a 5 minute.
The audio would also be good.
Okay, it's a 5 minute clip. It's a GOP War Room. It's called Top DHS Screening Official Unable to Provide Stats on Refugees. I'll let that play and then we'll come back to it, okay?
All right.
And for
Thank you,
5
Mr.
minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Barisi, earlier this week, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee gave an important speech where he talked about extremist groups, terrorist groups are trying to exploit the refugee program. So, like Mr. Russell just a few minutes ago, I would like to see if you can give us some numbers, just so this committee and the American people have this information. How many Syrian refugees have entered the United States in the last year?
Sir, I didn't bring any of the refugee numbers with me because I was prepared to talk about visa waiver, but I can certainly have us send that to you.
Do you know how many Americans have traveled to Syria in the last year?
I don't have that number on me either.
So you wouldn't know how many Americans have traveled and then returned?
I don't have that number on me.
How many visa waiver program overstays are there currently in the United States?
Sir, I didn't bring that number with me.
Ms. Barisi, when I look at the witness list, you got the longest title. Deputy Assistant Secretary, Screening Coordination, Office of Policy, Department of Homeland Security. You got the longest title, and it says Screening Coordination. Now, what is that? What screening are you coordinating? Is that just intra-agency or is that inter-agency?
It's both.
It's both, so it's all that.
DHS, I could coordinate across DHS components.
And the two biggest issues right now that we're dealing with, we had these terrible tragedies, terrible terrorist attacks, and we're talking about the refugee issue and the visa waiver program issue, and you can't give us any numbers on either program?
So I came prepared to talk about the visa waiver program.
And I just asked you how many visa waiver program overstays are there, and you said you don't know.
Sir, I don't have a number. Visa waiver program.
So when I ask you how many visa overstays of the visa waiver program may have traveled to Syria before they got here, do you know that number?
Sir, if visa waiver program national has a citizen of a visa waiver program country rather has traveled to Syria, Iraq, or a conflict zone, and they're considered a foreign fighter, that VWP
I'm not asking that. I'm saying someone from Great Britain. Someone from Great Britain comes to the United States on a visa waiver program, and they're now on overstay. Do we know if that person who's here today? Maybe they're not even an overstay. Do we know if that person has been to Syria before they came to the United States? Do we know that? I mean, I know this is what our bill that we just passed earlier this week is trying to get to. I'm asking, do we know that fact or that information now?
So that's why we have the IC involved, and there's an intelligence assessments, and we use.
I wasn't asking that. Do we know that? Do you know the number?
I don't know the number, but that's why I'm trying to.
But do we have people who are in that category I just described? Come from a visa waiver program country, may have traveled, they're here today, and may have been in Syria or Iraq or somewhere there in the last, before they came here. Do we know that?
If a citizen of a VWP country has traveled to one of those areas, there's a nexus to the United States, or the VWP partners shared that information with us, yes, we know that information, and we will vet against it. We will also use our algorithms.
But could they be here right now? Could they be here right now is my question.
I don't have that answer, sir.
All right, well, how about, can you tell me anything about the no-fly list then? You can't tell me anything about those. How does a person get put on the criteria for that? Can you tell me anything about that?
Sure, the no-fly list is a subset of the overall terrorist screening database. The interagency works together. The terrorist screening database is owned and operated by the Terrorist Screening Center, as I said earlier. There are criteria to get on that are.
How many American citizens are on that list right now? Can you give me that number? How many American citizens are on the no-fly list right now?
I know there are American citizens on the list. It is an extremely small number, but I don't have my numbers with me. But again, that's something I can easily get back to you.
Ms. Barisi, I've asked you the number of Americans who've traveled to Syria, you don't know. The number of Americans who may have traveled and returned, you don't know. The number of Syrian refugees who've entered the country in the last year, you don't know. The number of visa waiver program overstays, you don't know. The number of visa waiver overstays who may have been to Syria before they came here, you don't know, and the number of American citizens on the no-fly list, and you don't know, and yet you are the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Screening Coordination, Office of Policy, Department of Homeland Security in front of the Oversight Committee, and you can't give us one single number to some, I think, pretty basic questions?
Some of those statistics aren't held by DHS, and so that's why I would like to work with my interagency.
That's
partner to
why
get you
that's
the
why I
correct
referenced your
information.
title. You're the one who's the screening coordinator for all this, and you said you were interagency. That's why I referenced your title. Seems to me you should, when you
I'm
come
not,
in front of this
I'm a
committee, you should have that
DHS
information.
employee. I'm a DHS career civil servant employee, and I will work with my interagency partners, but they're
could
the
get us-
authoritative source for a lot of those numbers that you
If
mentioned.
you could get us those numbers and the ones Mr. Russell asked for, that would be very helpful. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so that was Miss Barisi, I believe I'm saying that right. I'm not even going to
Yeah,
try
that's correct.
to attempt her title because it's ridiculous. And
But
that
this
was
is this is the reason why I don't believe we need useless people currently in the government.
so you believe that there's a lot of fat that needs to be trimmed. Her in particular would be a job that you would look at and say, or you know what? Let me rephrase that. Rand
No,
Paul.
I don't mind
is
her
somebody-
being unemployed, honestly.
Oh, okay. So has Rand Paul addressed things like this? What is his position now that we've heard the clip?
His position is cutting down government. It's simple as that. He's gonna look over all these useless people who have no idea what the hell they're talking about and just cut them out.
Okay, so he wants to go in and we're talking about a massive undertaking. I mean, has he talked about how he'd do that? At what agency he would look at first? How he would streamline it? Anything like that?
Those are one of the topics on which it's a bit flaky. There's not much information about that. He just says I'll do it, but you know.
Okay. So it's sort of vague, but he's saying that he believes that government can be cut down. It's going to have to be if we're 290 billion less per year from tax income.
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's going to have to be if we're 290 billion less per year in tax income. He's going to have to trim government somewhere because he has to make that money up. So when we're looking at the visa program, when we're looking at immigration, his stance is go through the legal routes. But again, we're talking about the visa program here. So would he reform the program itself? Would he say it's going to be...
Of course, with all these quota hires getting removed, who have no idea what they're talking about, of course it's going to get reformed.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the people in positions that oversee the visas. I'm talking about the visa program itself. Is he going to put new mechanisms in place that make it more difficult or a better vetting?
He's going to hire someone who's going to hire someone competent who knows how to do that, and he'll actually do it.
Oh, okay, but again, we're a bit scarce on details. He hasn't really outlined, I guess, how he'd attack.
He doesn't really know exactly how he's going to do it. He just says he's going to do it. That's also one of the reasons why I like Trump. Trump also said he's going to remove the fat. He's going to remove all these useless people. He's going to talk to all these diplomats who got bought in, who have no idea what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we talked a little bit about his tax policy. We've touched a little bit on his immigration stance and military intervention. I think what some people might be worried about, and this is touching back on the military intervention of kind of a hands-off approach, is that it sets the United States up to be almost isolationist in its approach to international relations. We're not going to intervene in civil wars or conflicts in other countries, but doesn't that put us in a position that hurts a whole ton of different things: our security, our trade, our international relations? If we're not getting involved, what about our allies? What about our obligations to groups such as NATO? What is his stance on that?
This is still a better alternative to say who's our front runner right now. Trump, right?
Trump would be the front runner, yes.
Right. Trump wants to build a wall, and he wants to remove Mexico, one of our biggest allies, basically.
One of our biggest allies. You're talking about for trade or militarily, or how
For
would you?
trade, for military, for a lot of stuff.
I don't know if Mexico would be one of our biggest military allies, but
South America is it's growing.
Well, Mexico's
you can't
not.
say it's not. Brazil is becoming.
Anton, wait. Mexico isn't South America. Mexico's in North America. South America is a completely separate issue.
I'm saying that Mexico holds a lot of sway in South America.
Okay, so you're saying that our
South
relationship with
American
them has an influence on Central and South American relationships as well. It's a domino effect. So having a good relationship or relationship with Mexico in general will help us in dealing with other Central and South American countries.
Right.
Is that fair? Okay. I got a little off track here. Okay, so Trump wants to build.
Now Trump wants to build this wall. He's going to make Mexico pay for it, right? People will say, "Oh, fuck Mexico. Who cares about Mexico? Mexico is nothing, right?" That's basically what I see in a lot of chat, what I see in forums, what I see on poll. People really underestimate what Mexico actually brings to the table.
Well, yeah, I'm reading chat right now, and they're saying remove taco when we're talking about
Move taco. I
when we're
understand.
talking about Mexico.
But and he's gonna force Mexico, who he's not really doesn't really have the excess income to spend on something like this, to build a wall using their money and remove this influx of illegal workers that we have here. That's basically his plan, right?
His plan is to build a wall to tighten up immigration and to make them go back. They have to go
Yeah,
back. That is
make
his
go
that is
back.
his policy. Yes.
Now let's see what do you think would happen if we take 20 million immigrants, illegal immigrants. I'm sorry.
I thought it was 8 million. What is the exact number? Do we have a number on that? What does Rand
I
Paul
don't
address
really.
it as? What is?
Is it 8 million? I'm not.
I've heard between 8 and 12 million. It seems to fluctuate every week, so it's hard for me to get a solid number on exactly how many illegal immigrants we have in the U.S.
Also, Chad says I'm Spanish now. I'm actually Russian. That's
Oh, okay. Well, wait. Before we get into that, I feel like we're getting a bit off topic. So, Trump wants to build the wall. You're saying that's isolationist in itself. That hurts our relationship with Mexico. Rand
right.
Paul, though,
I really want to say what can happen if this can happen, right?
uh,
What are the consequences of this?
of building
I
a
really
wall
want
with
to.
Mexico.
Building a wall with Mexico and removing 10 million illegal immigrants from America currently, and sending them back. Fuck them.
So, do you think it's good? What you're okay? So, are you trying to get at the fact that you think this is going to hurt our North American Free Trade Agreement?
Of course, it's gonna hurt. That's not even that. See, let's say that all 10 million of these illegal immigrants work at these really low paying jobs, right?
Okay.
And we take them, we start sending them back.
Okay.
Is it possible to take all these like really weak jobs, people, all these restaurant workers, and do you think we can really refill that deficit of 10 million, underpaid, off the grid, underpaid illegal immigrants? Do you think we can really fill that flux of 10 million?
Well, what deficit are we talking about? If they're illegal immigrants getting paid, they're not paying taxes. So, what are we getting hit from by sending them back?
We're getting hit from all these companies, who hire these illegal immigrants, who pay them $5 an hour, and now simply they don't have that option anymore. They simply can't afford to get all these new kids.
Well, wait. I want to make sure we're understanding each other here. Are you making an argument saying that illegal immigration is good because we need it for business in the United States?
I'm saying that illegal immigration at this current moment is better than having no underpaid, underqualified workers. Because listen, say we take 10 million of these workers out, right? It
Okay.
will.
Okay.
How many people can actually fill those quotas? How many people are lining up waiting for a janitor job? A job picking up puke, a job, trimming hedges. Do you think some 18-year-old kid wakes up in the morning and goes, "Hey, this is the day. Now that all these illegal immigrants are gone, I really want to fill that, dream job of being a janitor."
Well, okay. Let me take this approach to it then. Don't you think that illegal immigration is fucking with market forces? If you're talking about who wants a job as a janitor, who wants to mop up shit, well, nobody's going to want to do it at $3 an hour. But they're able to pay $3 an hour because they have a pool of unskilled immigrant workers, illegal immigrant workers. Now, if a company wants to make that job attractive, they'd have to pay a fair wage. I mean, wouldn't you rather have American citizens employed, getting a
But
fair
why would they?
wage to do
But
this?
think of the corporation's idea. Why would he want to pay $8 an hour before he was getting a huge
Yeah,
profit
but what
because
what is he going to be able to do otherwise? We just got rid of the illegal immigrants.
leave,
So what is
leave
he?
America. That's
So
it.
wait, you think if we get rid of illegal immigrants, we're going to see corporations fleeing America because they can't pay?
Such a big influx, especially with Trump's tax policy on the way he wants to do it. I believe so that these companies who are halfway at the door already, they're gonna say, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna leave. What can Trump do? Trump wants to put a tariff on it, a 10% tariff, but that
But wait. Let's be realistic here. You think a corporation that's making billions of dollars in the United States right now is going to leave the country because they have to pay their janitors $1 more an hour?
well, let's not talk about big corporations. We're talking about a restaurant guy.
Yeah, well, no, we have to be realistic, though. If you're talking small businesses, a small business owner is not going to have the capital and the ability. If I own my own little independent restaurant, I can't just leave the country to go to Mexico because the janitors get paid less, because I'm going to get fucked trying to sell the same item over there, but it'll have to be for less money because we've got an entirely different economic system. The value of a peso is different than the value of a dollar. But if it's a large corporation, they're already making so much that having
Well,
to pay
I'm not saying he can move to Mexico. There are plenty of other countries who want to take that restaurant business. Canada for one.
Okay, so you think we'll see a maple syrup exodus of American small businesses that are going to go up north because we're not, I guess, because the illegal immigrants are gone, and so they need to go somewhere else. And I guess, I mean, their tax programs.
It's fine. It would be fine if it was in small dosage, right? It would be fine, if we take 1 million immigrants away each year or each 2 years. But if you take such a big influx, really cracking down on it, removing, all 10 million and say, 2 years tops, right? You can't fill that gap. That gap is going to stay there for a while.
Right, but I think when we argue something about this, or when we talk about illegal immigration, when we talk about getting rid of illegal immigrants, it's under the presupposition where we have the idea that they're all working and they're all employed and they're all getting paid. No, wait. They're all getting paid less than an American would get paid because they're all working the jobs nobody wants to work. But I can't really, I can't really picture. Yeah, I know, hypothetical. That's fair, but I can't picture millions of businesses fleeing the U.S. because they suddenly don't have gardeners anymore, and their janitors want more money.
Hundreds, thousands, maybe not millions, but thousands.
Okay,
that's still going to be enough. That's still going to be enough to take a toll, and a hit.
So then, how could we, how could Rand Paul, as I guess, as a political figure,
14.5%. That's simple.
No. I'm touching on immigration here. How can he say, I want to reform the immigration program? I want to get competent people handling visas, and at the same time not want to.
He's not going to crack down specifically on Mexicans and getting rid of them right away.
So Rand Paul's position is, it's okay to have illegals in. We need them for the economy.
No, Rand Paul's position is, we'll get rid of them, of course. Illegal immigrants is I'm not advocating that. Yeah, illegal immigration is good. It's great. But I'm saying that if you take that large amount currently and you crack down on it, it's gonna leave a gap. There's gonna be a gap.
And you don't think Americans can fill that gap, and you don't think companies
I do not believe that American citizens can fill that 10 million gap. Okay. In the hypothetical that all of them worked. Well, I could say 3 million, sure. 3 million jobs, sure. Go ahead. We'll fill 3 million jobs. But 10 million, no.
But yeah, what sectors are they working in, though? I mean, if you've got 100,000 maids and servants, that's not a company that's being affected. If you've got lawn care, that's not a company that's being affected. If you have something like construction, you can fill that gap. You can get workers to replace that. If you've got something like a janitor or a fast food worker,
you can fill, like, say one construction company has 100 illegal immigrants working for them, right?
Okay.
You're saying that in like a week's time they can get 100 of those people back?
Well, here's my counter to
100 legal workers back?
Here's my counter to that.
Fill that gap of those illegals?
Here's my counter to that. If you have a construction company that's filled with, let's say, 100, or their whole damn workforce is illegal immigrants, we're getting screwed from them because nobody's paying taxes. They're paying them under the table. They're not going to go and report that. You don't have 100 people paying income tax. So we're getting doubly screwed. Not only are they taking Americans' jobs and giving them to illegal foreigners, they're also not paying taxes on the money earned and the money paid to them. So why would I care? Why would I care?
The main construction guy. He still has to pay taxes.
Wait. You don't think that a company that's already hiring that many illegal immigrants you think they're going to actually be paying taxes accurately? Why would I care if they stay in the United States? Let them go to Canada and milk the system up there. Let them go to Canada and import a bunch of Mexicans and screw the taxpayers of Canada over, doing the same thing up there that they've been doing down here. They're taking away American jobs, and they're not paying taxes properly. And I'm supposed to feel like there's going to be some massive gap by this company that's cheating, essentially, that's breaking the system and doing something they know is underhanded and wrong?
Yeah, you're going to feel that gap. No matter how much you put it, no matter how much what you believe is right or wrong, there's still going to be a gap. There's still going to be people who say, no, I don't want to pay that fucking kid $8 an hour. Fuck him.
So they say they'll pay $7, and they get the kid that wants $7 instead of the kid that gets 8.
But you can't pay less than $7. The minimum wage is $7.25.
Well, I know the minimum
You
wage.
think the kid is gonna go? Yeah, no, okay, that's fine. Pay me less than what? Pay me less than minimum wage. He's not gonna say that. He's gonna say.
But the company's
I want my
already.
minimum wage.
The company's
I want my
already.
workers' rights. I want my Social Security benefits.
Anton, the company's already doing shit like this. So you don't think they'd continue to do it? Well, how many high school kids do you know that go to court and engage in civil or criminal litigation against a construction company because their boss wants to pay them 25 cents less?
Currently in 2015, where you can sue anybody for anything.
It is the current year, yes. It is.
Current year, yeah.
It is 2015. Thank you, John Oliver. Yes.
That's not a great thing that I said. I'm gonna get screwed for that. All right. 5 more days. 5 more days.
Okay. I get what your argument is. Okay, and fair enough. I disagree with you, but I get what you're saying. But back to the main point that we were talking about, as far as American isolationism and how that is going to affect international relations, our security, and our trade. Now, your counter to that is, well, Trump wants to do this, fine. But Rand Paul, he wants only legal avenues for immigration. That's great. He wants to reform the visa program. Awesome. He wants to get competent people in there. Great. And he wants a more handoff approach with Syria and other countries. But don't you think that puts America itself in a weak position? We're not. There's no presence of power as far as America goes anymore. The other countries.
We're not in a position to be strong. No, what's the debt right now? What's the amount of debt right now we're having?
Oh,
That's
God.
18 trillion.
Yeah, it's so far beyond
18
reasonable.
trillion. We're not really in the position of power. We're not a force that we were in, let's say, 2005 in the 2000s. We're not that anymore. We're seeing a bunch of these companies getting much more much more out of other countries than they can out of America.
Okay.
Let's take, for example.
Don't you think, though, and again, this is related to immigration, but don't you think that presents a security risk? San Bernardino, they did come in legally through the visa program. But, we're talking about illegal immigration from Mexico or coming up through Mexico, and he doesn't really have as staunch an opinion as, say, a Trump would on that. How do we know we're not going to get terrorists fleeing through there? If America says, hey, we need the immigrants to fill in, or illegal immigrants, we need these illegal immigrants to fill in job quotas because companies don't want to pay people properly, and we're going to kind of turn a blind eye to that. How do we know that's not inviting?
I'm not saying, again, you're kind of twisting that stuff. He's gonna remove illegal immigrants, like little by little. It's gonna get removed. They're gonna process them. We're gonna change them to legal immigrants, and they'll get paid a bit more. But when you build a wall and you remove all this amount, it's gonna hit. There's gonna be a hit. You're gonna take a massive deficit, and
Well, no, wait. To be fair, and I understand that you're saying there are different time frames to deal with, but if Rand Paul is saying we're going to do it gradually and we're going to legalize gradually, well, Trump isn't going to magically come into office, snap his fingers, and a giant wall for miles and miles between America and Mexico is going to be in place, nor is he going to snap his fingers and all these illegal immigrants are going to disappear. It will take years, if not 2 terms as president, not only to get rid of all the illegal immigrants, but also to build that wall. So how is the time frame really different than Rand's?
Well, because Rand isn't gonna be cracking down specifically on those illegal immigrants. No, Rand is basically just gonna be, we're gonna look through them. We're gonna see who currently reside. That's gonna be like 100 illegal immigrants a week, as opposed to 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 a week.
Okay, so smaller government, smaller ability to manage
Smaller government,
it.
smaller removal.
And I think this also touches on Rand Paul's positions, and I want to kind of try to segue into this in regards to things like CISA. I know that he voted against the omnibus bill, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Okay. So what is his position? You know more about him than I would. Again, it's pitch your candidate. What is his position on things like the NSA prison program, on CISA?
It's unconstitutional. That's simply as that. He's a man who stands by the Constitution, which is what we currently need right now, as opposed to Trump, who all right, this is the hero that people have been yelling about all this time. He's a guy. People say he's this right-wing guy, but that's not true at all. He voted for Obama in 2008. He supports and funds Hillary. He supported Obama's stimulus package, supported bailouts, socialistic tax policies, advocated a healthcare system, that's similar to Canada's. He supports the NSA, and he wants to, he wants to ban on assault weapons. You can yell, "Oh, but my immigration," but that's not true. He also supported the Dreamers and Dream Act. A person can't simply change all those stances that quick.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Rand Paul has changed his stances on some things. He did the 2013 filibuster, it was 13 hours or so long, talking about the drone use on American citizens. But then he later went on to say that he felt if there was an imminent threat, it was okay to use drones on American citizens. Did he not?
Well, I'm not exactly sure about that, but
I thought that was one of the more major things that he kind of changed position on.
but that's because he's falling low in the polls. You're gonna start saying a lot of crazy things when your back is put against the wall.
Well, no, I believe this was 2013 when the filibuster happened, and then 2014 when he changed his position. I could be wrong on this. That's why I'm asking.
I'm not exactly sure about that stance that he used.
Okay.
If you can link me something like that, then sure, yeah. But
Okay.
I haven't really seen anything about that, honestly.
All right. So we've talked a little bit about his. I mean, the flat tax kind of seems to be the center pole of his campaign. He talked a little bit about wanting to cut government fat, a little bit about his immigration stance, a little bit.
It's not simply like I love Rand Paul. I think Rand Paul is the greatest. It's
I'm not saying you
out of
are.
all the candidates, that I've seen, Rand has a better plan than even the front runner Trump. Let's look at this. This just came in today, right?
Okay.
I sent you that.
Oh, you sent me a link. All right, let me take a look.
He's really isolating all these companies who want to work within the United States. He's really isolating. He's putting the pressure on them. You got to stay. If you stay, we don't want to work with you. America isn't really those big guys that we knew growing up.
Okay, so the link that you sent me, so the people listening know, is a article talking about how Trump threatens 35% tax on Ford if Mexico operations expand. So he's saying we're going to hit you with more taxes for outsourcing your work. How is that a bad thing to say to a company, if you want to be based in the U.S., you can't go and hire some Mexican or some Indian for 5 cents an hour?
Because he doesn't have anything to keep them here. Like if they stay here, they're going to get hit more than if they move.
Okay, well, Ford wants to sell product. You have to understand, America, as far as a consumer country goes,
I got you there. That's not true.
Okay, you don't think America is a consumer? No, you don't think America imports more than they export? We do. I guarantee you that. We do, 100%.
Big spender index of 2015.
Okay.
Where do you see America on there? America isn't buying as much as they were in previous years. China has passed America since 2013.
Okay.
Of buying the most luxury products. Here is Apple's current seller rate. Oh, oops, I set that in the wrong place.
Okay, well, first, a couple things. One,
look at that influx of...
Oh, hold on, Anton.
Right.
Okay, the first link that you sent me, it lists countries, UK, China, Qatar, Canada, India, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, Mexico, Hong Kong, and then Kuwait as the top 10 ranked. What is this from? What site is this from? Where am I getting this information from? So I know what I'm looking at.
Second, I think I have the link somewhere.
Is this like a government source? Is this an international thing?
Source.
The 10 highest scoring countries according to the Big Spenders Index, based on scores in the following categories.
This is the who they believe to be the current front runners. Who will be the people who are gonna currently lead in luxury spending.
In luxury spending, is it just luxury spending?
Luxury spending.
Okay. All right. So does that discount the fact that America imports more than they export?
If you want it.
Okay. Oh, let me take a look at this.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Oh, and this is the Apple.
There it is. Sorry, this is it. Business Insider.
Okay, let me just take a look at it because again, this is my first time looking at it.
These are countries most likely to see increased spending on luxury goods based on a number of factors.
All right, so this is from Knight Frank's annual wealth report. The breakdown of which countries are most likely to spend or see increased spending on luxury goods.
Right. Do you see America on there? Because I simply don't.
No, wait. Is this chart breaking down who's seeing an increase in spending or who spends the most?
who spend the most and who to see an increased spending on luxury goods. Who are going to be the front runners in the year 2016?
Okay, Chinese consumers are already the top buyer of luxury goods around the world. So you're saying that we don't have
They
the
have been for many years. Two more.
Anton, wait, let me ask. So what you're saying is America isn't in a position as a consumer country anymore that we can dictate to companies that they can't go overseas.
I believe that. That's
So
truly.
so we have to give them, but isn't that setting up a corporatist?
We have to give much more lenient factors so that countries can stay.
But isn't that setting up a
Not
corporatist,
countries, companies can stay.
Anton?
Sorry.
Isn't that setting up a corporatist nation? If the notion is America is so weak that we're going to retract from dealing with other countries around the world, that we're not going to dictate to American countries the rates at which they hire people, who they employ, because we're going to allow illegal immigration and under the table paying. We're not going to try to hit American companies for outsourcing work. So what exactly? How are we going to enforce anything then? Really, I mean, it sounds like we're almost giving up.
14.5%. We keep coming back to that number. 14.5%. That's the number.
Anton, wait. If we're doing that just to appease these companies, what if they say, I want 13%, I want 12%, I want 2%, otherwise I'm going to Mexico? What are you going to do about it?
Mexico can't beat 14.5%. They simply can't.
No, what I'm saying is, if the companies have that much weight already, and we're going to give them these decreased tax rates because we're so weak, and we don't spend as much as a China or anybody else, how are we not setting ourselves up for allowing corporations to dictate to politicians and set policy going forward?
Why would they leave when we have 14.5%? We're basically around the best spot.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's say they stay headquarters in the United States, but let's say they have their employees working in Mexico or India.
Is India going to give them better tax breaks than we do with 14.5%?
What taxes are they going to pay when they pay their employees 5 cents an hour?
They still have to pay they still have to pay export tax, import tax. It's still a high risk.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the numbers on that, or does it, I'm trying to
for specific countries? No, I'm not sure. I don't have those numbers, but I'm just saying that 14.5% is the number that's needed to compete internationally.
Okay, I'm looking at chat to see if anybody's got the number. All right. You know what? I'm going to be upfront with you. I don't know either. I don't know those numbers either. I don't think that this list necessarily reflects America being in a weak position as a consumer nation, and I don't necessarily agree with the idea that we can't tell a company, hey, you can't outsource your work to another or a country because we're in such a weak position. But fair enough. You know,
What can we do to stop them? That's an answer. What can we do currently as a nation to stop them?
if we really wanted to,
If we really wanted, what could we do
nationalize
to stop
them.
countries from leaving?
Nationalize them.
Nationalize them?
Yeah, take them. Why not? What are they going to do? We have a military.
That's
You asked for an answer.
Maybe you should run for president, Jim.
We can nationalize them. What is Ford going to do? I'll put a gun in their face. It's America now. That's what it's called. We're renaming Ford to America. We're gonna sell Eagles instead of trucks. That's the business plan.
If you ran, I would vote for you. No problem.
Okay, so we're getting kind of near the end of our time here. Are there any other positions that Rand Paul has that you want to bring up? Anything that really wows you, or anything that you think people should know? Like, hey, Rand Paul really believes this. This is why he's a better candidate than a Rubio or a Cruz or a Trump or anybody else.
I think 14.5% is simply what we. There's no argument against it. I haven't seen anybody who can argue against Rand in any political standpoint. Sorry. 14.5%. Nobody can beat this. Nobody can find anything bad to say about this.
Do you think that's maybe what's hurting him in the polls then, if he's just a single issue candidate? If the 14.5% is the only thing he's known for, do you think that's why people are hesitant, or they don't really know a lot about him because they want to hear him talk more about immigration? They want to hear him talk more about.
I mean, what's who cares? I mean, like.
Well, the voters do.
They simply don't care about Rand Paul because he doesn't go on Twitter and doesn't go fuck immigrants, fuck Muslims, whatever. But that's what I really like about Trump. He's a really good political what's the word? actor, political actor. That's not the best word, but that's the only one.
Showmanship. Trump has showmanship.
Showmanship. That's the word.
There you
That's
go.
the word I was looking for. Such as when he posted those, black on black crime rates, then CNN had to post the actual numbers, which is still really high. I love that. I think that's amazing. And that's what people care about. They don't care about food. They don't care about tax policies. They don't care about.
Well, and I'm not trying to be unrealistic. I'm not saying Rand Paul is going to talk more about other issues and suddenly he's going to get a 50% jump in the polls. But do you think it would help him at least if he was a little more outgoing and he said, "Hey, this is where I stand on this this issue, this issue, this issue, and this issue. I'm not just the tax guy. I've got plans for other things too. This is why you should support me." Do you think that maybe would help him a little?
I would love if he would do that, but it's better to stick to the point which you believe is your strongest selling point.
And for him, it's the tax rate. It's a flat tax.
5%, right?
Okay.
Even if he's this low in the polls, even if he's 3%, he's 4%. I'll no matter what, I'll still vote for him. I don't want to vote for the giant douche. I don't want to vote for the turd sandwich. I'll vote for the guy I believe whose political standpoints, stand with my own.
More power to you. I mean, you should vote for the person that you feel is best for the job. So, I'm glad that you're not swayed by opinion polls, and you seem to be invested in the candidate, and you know a pretty good amount of what his standpoints are. So you seem like an informed voter. Let me see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover. I had one thing, but I can't find it now, and I apologize for that. But
Jim, I really want you to vote. Even if you hate every candidate, I would rather you vote than you don't, because that's what they did in Canada. They didn't vote for Harper, and now they have
Trudeau.
76 cents to a dollar. That's not really what we want in America.
right, we don't want a stripper as president. I
We
understand.
don't, we don't want an actual criminal or a guy who can't do basic math on his fingers.
Right. But do you think?
Even if you hate all the political standpoints, pick the punch to the stomach instead of the shotgun to the face.
And that's a fair argument. I will say this, at least as far as social media goes. Yeah, I was joking with somebody about this earlier too. If you go on Twitter right now, because we brought this up, and look up Rand Paul's Twitter, he talks about his son's candidacy. But if you go and look up George H.W. Bush, right, Jeb Bush's father, he doesn't talk about Jeb Bush at all.
Guacamole, man.
No,
he's going to drop out this week.
That's amazing to me that Rand is supportive of his son. You know what I mean? Like, hey, good luck. Or not Rand. God, Ron is supportive of his son. But George, H.W. Bush won't say anything about Jeb. And the funniest thing too is if you listen to Barbara Bush, right, his mother, she doesn't want him to run. She actually said during an interview, anybody but him. Yeah, she actually said anybody but him should be president. That's remarkable to me. So, I mean, maybe he's got a little bit of social media presence. His dad's kind of out there trying to help when he can, which is good. I'll give you the last word here. We're gonna wrap up.
But the last word is
Go for it.
Rand also didn't spend that much on his political campaign. There's only about 900,000, which is the second lowest to Trump, who spent 260,000, I believe.
Yeah, Trump has spent. Oh, I think he has $5 million in his war chest. I don't know how much of that he spent, but yeah,
I
you're
think
probably
it's 260,000.
Okay.
Instead of the fifth, Rand spent 900,000 is nothing to scoff about, but it's still much less than every other political candidate.
No, he's definitely down there.
I think that's something that's something to admire, honestly.
Okay.
For such a little man to stand so tall.
Well, stand with Rand.
Rand.
Or at least put him up on your shoulders so you can see over the counter. It's a little short joke because he's very tiny.
Nice joke. We should start calling you Jennifer instead of Jim.
There you go. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Anton. Thanks for.
I flapped a little bit in the start. People started calling me, Asperger's, but I had fun. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Hey, and again, I appreciate you coming on. Again, this was Anton pitching for Rand Paul. Like he said when he brought up, those are his political points, and if you agree with them, go out there and vote. All right. Thank you, Anton.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. All right. Well, we've got another segment coming up at the end of the show. For the last hour, we're going to have actually Kyle's coming back on. I decided to start a secondary segment to kind of parallel this one. It's its opposite, so to speak. So we've got Pitch a Candidate, where you come on and you talk about the person you want to see in office and what you think appeals about them. And then we're going to have condemn a candidate because, as Kyle was telling me on Twitter, Trump is the worst. And I didn't feel like having a 400 tweet argument in 140 characters, so I'm going to let him come on and we'll see where this goes. Have other people on as the weeks go on to talk about candidates they think are wrong for the job, but that's what Kyle is going to be doing. Well, let's talk about the news of the week. There have been a couple of different things that have gone on, both nationally and internationally. I think anybody paying attention yesterday would have noticed there was an issue with the Steam service where they had a little bit of a caching issue. If you tried to go onto the Steam store for about an hour or two, you were going to be seeing other people's account information. Now, initially, people had said that this was only in relation to the last couple digits of their credit card, their email address was fully visible, and partial phone numbers. Steam had later, or I should say Valve had later gone on to have somebody go to their community forums and say that they're required by law to cover up the credit card and the phone number. But people have been reporting over the last day or so that that wasn't necessarily the case, that if you had gotten into somebody else's account or you saw a cached version of it, you could go to the cart and then look at their information, which included the full phone number, the home address or the billing address, the full name, email address, all of that, with the exception of the credit card because it wouldn't be saved in the same detail as the other information. So if you're using Steam, happy holidays. I find it somewhat ironic that the cart gimmick works. I mean, who would be using a cart? Who would have items in their cart during a winter sale? Oh wait, fucking everyone would. I think it does highlight one of the issues with consumers, though. The reactions I saw to it were a little bit remarkable. They reminded me of the PSN hack and just other services that had issues. It's people rushing to defend companies and corporations when a mistake like this happens, whether it's malicious or if it's just an honest-to-God accident. Now, Valve is known for having just god-awful customer support. If you try to get a hold of them, good luck, because there really is no mechanism other than the very limited one they provide to you to get a hold of them. You're not going to be able to call them up and get them on the phone to complain about some issue. So you have this massive caching issue happen, and Valve is completely silent. They don't say anything as this is going on for the hour to 2 hours that it happened. If you wanted information on it, whether it related to security means to take, what you should avoid, how you might be affected, you're listening to a source like SteamDB, who is unaffiliated third party. They're not affiliated with Valve. They're their own independent thing. Now, they were on Twitter and other social media and explaining to people what the issue was and how to best address it, but Valve was not. So while this is going on, I noticed a lot of people rushing to Valve's defense. It's not a big deal. It doesn't really matter. Valve is great. Stop fear-mongering. Now, as a consumer, I like to have my information protected. I don't like it to be bandied about and handed out like candy on a fucking Halloween. Yet, people seem to have this notion that they need to rush to defend services they use and like. I like Steam. I use it quite a bit. I like Valve as a company. Seems like it's okay. I have some issues with them, but that's, aside the point. But this was a massive, catastrophic issue that shouldn't have gone on as long as it did and should have been addressed directly from Valve. And yet it was allowed to happen for hours. Now you have this information passed out. If you're using the service, there's your phone number, there's your address, there's your full name, there's your email. And people are trying to pretend that you can't do damage with that sort of information. That you can't take the last few digits of a credit card with all that associated information and do things to people, but you can. So it's remarkable to me to see people come out and defend this. I don't understand that mentality. It's a company. You're using their service. You should be given a good, value for your dollar, so to speak. Yet, remarkably, again, people seem to need to rush to defend it. It just, it blows my mind, I'll be honest. I don't understand it. Now, recently, this happened after the Mall of America protest, if you're unfamiliar. There was a protest at the Mall of America by Black Lives Matters and Justice for Jamar. If you've not been paying attention to Minnesota lately, there was a incident involving a criminal, and he was a criminal. He had a criminal record, named Jamar Clark, who was shot outside nearby the 4th Precinct in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Witnesses said that he was put face down on the ground, handcuffed, and brutally executed by the police. This led to weeks of protest outside the 4th Precinct where they blocked off roads, broke beer bottles in the street, blocked off the highway, put up graffiti on the police station, and generally caused a ruckus and a nuisance. Fast forward to this holiday time of year, and they decided that they're going to go to the Mall of America. And it's related to Justice for Jamar and Black Lives Matters because they want a tape release that shows the incident happening. Apparently there was a dash cam video, and they want to see it. So that was one of the demands. Well, a Minneapolis City Councilwoman by the name of Alondra Cano attends this. Now, if you look at her social media accounts, be it Facebook or Twitter or any of the other various services she uses, you'll see that she is deeply involved in it. She's talked about it for months and months and months. Talked about Black Lives Matters, talked about Justice for Jamar. Not just her, but her kids too. Her kids will attend these rallies. Her kids will go with her when she goes to these things. Now, she was at the Mall of America shutdown, and she was there with all the other protesters. Well, constituents found out about this because it was covered in the mainstream media a little bit, or I should say the Minnesota media, and she talked about it again on social media. They found out about this, didn't like it, felt it was wrong that she should be attending, or they disagreed with the points that the protest groups were bringing up. And so they wrote her, they emailed her through her official email. Now, she took the information, and instead of responding to it like a politician would, directly emailing them back, or even just simply ignoring it, she took their information and posted it publicly on Twitter in hashtags used by these activists. And she put up their phone numbers, their full names, their addresses, their emails. Now, when people saw this happen, of course, they were a little annoyed. They found that to be improper on her part. Now, she says that her claim, I should say, is this is proper protocol. They can release information. Government officials have to release correspondence, and there's a Minnesota statute related to that. However, she chose the means by which she did so. And when she decided to release these people's private information, she did it in the hashtags used by the activist groups that she personally supports. Then when she was questioned on it by people who were saying, why are you releasing the information of your constituents in such a way? She claimed that they were racist. She claimed not only that the people who were condemning her actions were racist, but the people who had initially emailed her were racist. She then went on to claim that it was misogynistic. It wasn't just that she was a woman of color, it was that she was a woman as well. Well, you can imagine this caused a bit of a shitstorm in Minnesota, namely Minneapolis. The people affected have contacted the press. I've heard rumors that there's a lawsuit that might go through. She has since deleted the tweets. Now, she is a DFL endorsed candidate in Minnesota. DFL is the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And she seems to reflect the policies of the people she associates with. They've had some interesting things happen over the course of the last few months. There was a politician who was a DFL candidate who tweeted out discussing ISIS. And the interesting thing about that is she's associated with Justice for Jamar. When Jamar Clark's brother went on camera during one of the protest marches outside the 4th Precinct and talked about how he supported ISIS. How they were just doing their thing, which is remarkably similar to what the political candidate who was running for the DFL for state rep had said. ISIS isn't necessarily evil. They're just doing what they think is necessary for their community. They're community oriented. I don't know if you're aware of that. ISIS, they really like to give back. Give back bombings and beatings and beheadings. They're really engaged with the people who live around them. How fucking wonderful is that? So I don't know exactly how her position would be affected by this. I don't know what legal means or political means people could take to garner some kind of response or get some kind of action taken against her. She is a city council woman. I don't know if they can get her ousted from office. But there seems to be an implicit threat in her actions. If you watch what happened over the course of Justice for Jamar, you will find out that during those streams, because they streamed a lot of their protests, violence occurred. People made threats, people roughed up outsiders, and outsiders as in being anybody who wandered into their vicinity was physically confronted by these individuals. You had people associated with the group, like I said, Jamar Clark's brother, making statements about ISIS. You had others that were, committing acts of vandalism, that were throwing bottles and bricks and other things at police officers and into the highway to disrupt traffic. And here she is taking your personal information, where you live, what your phone number is, and putting it into the hashtag used by those violent people, and saying, not only do you disagree with her, but you're a racist. What better way to get a reaction from these activists than calling you a racist and then posting your home address and your phone number and your name and your email? It seems almost like a threat. Like she's saying, if you dare to disagree with me, if you dare to raise a fuss, I will use my political office to get a bunch of thugs, because that's what these fucking people are, get a bunch of thugs to come and harass you. Maybe they'll do it in real life. Maybe you can't stop that. So it is remarkable to me that she would do this. Of course, like I said, she went on to delete those tweets. She got rid of them. She got cold feet, as it were. So I'm guessing somebody from the DFL or the city council told her how ridiculous her actions were and what she was inviting upon herself. If you look in the local media, you'll see about 10 different outlets are covering this right now. And of course, because it's the holiday weekend, who knows how it'll play out when Monday comes around. But hopefully there's some kind of a punishment. Hopefully there is some kind of an apology for the action she's taken. Absolutely irresponsible. Now, one of the other funny things related to this is she said that she was fulfilling her official capacity as a city councilwoman by using her Twitter account to release this information. Yet, if you were to criticize her, she would block you from having access to it. So how it is she can use a official Twitter account, that's what she said, and release publicly needed information, but then deny the public access to it is beyond me. It almost seems like she got a little too in over her head, that she massively fucked this up, and that there's probably going to be real repercussions for her. But if you're one of the people affected, I would definitely contact the local media, and I would definitely talk to a lawyer. If you get some strange phone calls, if people start showing up at your house, that's time that that's when you need to get involved. Now, this also speaks to another issue, which is there are a lot of DFL politicians, it seems, that are involved with Black Lives Matters, that are involved with Justice for Jamar. It's not just a city councilwoman. The state rep, Keith Ellison, is involved in it. He's been involved for over a year. His son goes to these protests as well. Dayton is the governor of Minnesota, has been very sympathetic to these groups. So how am I, as a citizen of the state, ensured that my politicians are actually doing the job they need to be doing? It seems like we have a lot of biased people in political power that agree with these protesters and are willing to not only put citizens in jeopardy, but abuse their office to do so. Keith Ellison has been riding the Black Lives Matters thing for a year now. There's a picture of his son sitting outside the police station on a chair with his hands out waiting for the police to gas him. If you watch the live stream, by the way, it's a very different situation than the one that's presented in that singular picture. They were provoking the police and trying to set up a photo op, just like they did when they shut down I-35, or I-94, I can't remember which of the highways it was. But they'll come in, they'll instigate, they'll get a situation going, get their photo op, and then get in the papers and talk about how oppressed and how put down they are. But I think there's a serious problem in Minnesota when you have this many politicians at different levels of government associating with this group, and then apparently abusing their office as a way of creating a backlash against any citizen of the state that has a problem with it. So I don't know what Kano's future holds, but God, I hope that somebody takes the time to really try to get some kind of a reaction, try to get something going on, because that is just fucking ridiculous. All right, I'm going to pull up a clip here. In other news over the course of the week, there was an interesting little segment on MSNBC. This was, I believe, Morning Joe, and some of the panelists had some interesting advice for Hillary Clinton. So I'm going to play that for you, and then discuss what they're talking about.
It's a couple days before Christmas, so I'm going to be a bit subtle with my words. The Clinton campaign always needs to be careful when they talk about the mistreatment of women, because they may be running against a guy who is going to be waiting for them to talk about war on women or women being mistreated or women being degraded, and then Katie barred the door. It's going to get ugly. That's my Christmas warning to the Clinton campaign.
I agree. I think that they can't
very
overcorrect
careful
on little things like this, and it should be just cast off as stupidity.
They can't like
Stupid. The whole thing's stupid.
see a word that and act like this degrades all women in a way that, let's say, sexual harassment in the workplace would degrade women, or equal pay, or harassment, or even rape. You just can't draw those
Not in
straight
this
lines.
election. Are you uncomfortable, Richard?
They just need to be. They need to be.
Okay.
The Clinton campaign needs to be very careful, and especially if they draw Donald Trump, because the first time she talks about women being mistreated.
Yeah.
Just sit back and take notes.
Yeah.
Just sit back and take notes. Are you uncomfortable? I think he was a little uncomfortable. There was a dead silence in that studio when this was being discussed. It was really eerie too. If you've ever watched the show or clips from it, they usually can't shut the hell up. But this time, everybody was very silent in regards to the little warning that was being put out. Now, this was in regards to Hillary Clinton talking about Donald Trump, throwing out a few allegations, and Donald Trump responding, telling her to be careful when it comes to who she's talking about and sexist activities. And you can hear that Joe went on to discuss there might be a few skeletons in the Clinton closet, and Donald Trump potentially has that information and is just waiting for the opportunity. He's just waiting for Hillary Clinton to step over the line, to say something she shouldn't say, so he can open that closet and let all the spooky, scary skeletons dance in front of mainstream media. Now, there's speculation, there have been rumors about what that exactly relates to. That potentially, and again, this is all speculation, I'm not saying it's fact, this is just what I've heard, that Bill Clinton engaged in some violent sex with some potentially young people. I don't know if that's the information he has, I don't know if that's the information that people believe he will be threatening them with. But I can tell you this, mainstream media seems to be it's a little weird, isn't it? It's a little weird hearing a host of a television show on a news station such as MSNBC come out and say, be careful. Don't engage in this. You don't want the repercussions that are going to be associated with it. I've never seen that before. Why is the mainstream media going to bat for Hillary Clinton? Why are they telling her to be careful? Why do they care? They're there to, report the news and talk about it. So what's with the campaign warnings? It also raises the question of, do they know? If Donald Trump, again, hypothetically, if Donald Trump has information like that, and he obtained it, and he's, ready to release it, does Joe have it? Do other people in the mainstream media have information about Clinton, about her husband, about activities they've been engaged in, and they've refused to report on it? That seems really sketchy, doesn't it? We hear a lot from the Republican side in the presidential debate talking about, and this has been brought up at different venues that the debates were held at, that there is a bias from mainstream media, especially left-wing media, that they engage in a way that paints the right in a bad light while defending the left. And, watching this reaction, watching this clip from Morning Joe where they're talking about, hey, Hillary, be careful, you don't want him to talk about that thing, it makes it seem like maybe that's not really that far off base, huh? Then maybe the politicians, Cruz and Trump and Rubio, who had brought this up at these debates, and even Christie, maybe they were right. Maybe there is some kind of an implicit bias. Maybe these people have information on candidates and they refuse to release it because they back that party. It's a bad look. It's a very bad look for mainstream media. Now, I would love to know. I would love for Joe to go into more detail and explain to us exactly what it is he's so worried about, exactly what it is the people in this room are so uncomfortable about, because he seems not to want to do it. It's a very bizarre clip. That's really the only way to put it. I don't know if anybody's ever going to press him on this. I don't know if anybody's going to say, what did you mean by that? Or what do you think Trump might have on them? But whatever it is, he has something in mind. He right now, when he did this, something came to his mind that he immediately connected with the Clintons that had to do with maybe sexual harassment, or even if you know what, I'm going to replay this. I want you to hear really carefully what he brings up as the last example. Let me pull this up here. Sorry.
Or degrade women, or equal pay, or harassment or even rape.
Or even rape. Why would that be something he'd bring up? We're talking about pay gaps and harassment and saying uncomfortable things. Why did Joe finish that off with, or even rape? What would Donald Trump be bringing up about the Clinton campaign and the Clintons that had to do with rape? I'm really curious about that. I can't be the only one who's curious about exactly what he might be referring to. What information does Joe have about potential rapes that the Clintons were involved in? And I love the look of his co-host. She is dead-eyeing. Mika is dead-eyeing the other guests. Are you uncomfortable? Does talking about rape and Clinton in the same sentence, does that make you uncomfortable? If you watch this clip, you can find it online, by the way. It's MSNBC panel warns Hillary, be careful with Donald Trump. If you watch it, just look at their faces. Look at their faces when they're talking about this, and look at how she looks at the other guest when rape gets brought up. It's a remarkable clip all around. In other news, jumping topics here, Bank of America apparently was able to get a journalist to delete his tweets because they said it violated copyright. Now, this is from Jim Edwards, the founding editor of Business Insider UK. He had to delete 2 tweets related to Bank of America after he received an email saying that his jokes, and he was joking about the bank, violated their copyright, and that if he refused to remove the tweets in question, they would get his account shut down. Now, this is really fascinating for a few different reasons. One, how is it that a bank can exercise that kind of power? He's making jokes on social media, and they're telling him he needs to behave. But 2, why is Twitter complying with that? He had to go in and do this. So obviously it means Bank of America can go through some kind of a mechanism to make anybody, and it's not just the fact that he's a journalist, but just anybody, remove something they deem is bad to their brand. Could you imagine if other companies engaged in this? Think of the hobbies most people have nowadays. Think of video games. Could you imagine if EA or Bethesda or Microsoft or Sony wrote to you and said, hey, you made a joke about our video game system. You made a joke about a game we released recently or a service we provide. If you don't, delete that, we're going to have your account shut down because you violated copyright. It's rather remarkable. Twitter has seemed to have gone down the path of making their social media platform not very social. You can have your account locked and blocked now for stepping out of line in a myriad of ways, not just the outrageous, outlandish ones, where you say something that you shouldn't, where you make a really racist or sexist joke, where you put up gore or porn, but just something somebody doesn't like. And Twitter will lock you out of your account, and if you want to get back in, not only do you have to delete the tweet in question that offended somebody, you have to enter your phone number now too. And this goes back to the constant shift in CEOs for the company that have tried to redirect or rebrand what Twitter is going to be going forward. I know in 2014 or at the tail end or middle of the year, they had a CEO that was talking about wanting to get rid of all the porn accounts. He wanted to get rid of 10 million plus accounts that tweeted porn, talked about porn, were associated with porn. We saw they put in new safety and harassment guidelines. And now we're seeing corporations and banks basically being able to make people remove tweets that upset them or make their brand look bad. So what the hell is the point of Twitter? What is the point of using the service? And imagine this kind of, force or ability being used against a journalist. I mean, I'm just talking from the average user's perspective, but this person was a journalist. What if it wasn't a joke? What if they wrote a story? Or what if they had information about Bank of America or about any corporation really? And they're being forced on social media platforms to remove that information. It's not a good look going forward. Not for the service that Twitter for the service that Twitter provides. And it's not just Twitter. We've been seeing this on other major social media networks. Look at Facebook. Facebook is going through deleting old posts and old accounts that have, curse words in it, sexist imagery, racist imagery, anything they find offensive now, and just wiping them from the records. It seems like the social media services want to be not only the arbiters of what is morally right and good, but also back corporations that have a problem with the way that users engage with them. The internet is full of banter. Part of the appeal of what makes the internet so fun is the ability to go onto a service or a website and joke around, create image edits, talk about something, make fun of a corporation or a product or an event. But now we're seeing social media basically saying you can't do that anymore. You can't just use our service. You need to now use it in the way we want you to use it. You want to put a YouTube video up? We're going to remove it. Then we're going to make it so your subs don't get notifications. Then we're going to make it so you have to enter a phone number. If you want to extend the amount that you do, we're going to need your name and all this other information. Oh, you want to put a tweet up? Somebody found it offensive. Give us your full name and your phone number. Oh, you want to do something on Facebook? We're going to need all your information. Just make sure you don't offend somebody. It's creating this almost secondary, third-party run database of information on all your social media accounts and how you behave. It's almost like they're reprogramming people. We're going to force you basically to behave a certain way. And if you don't behave that way, you're not going to use any of these services. You're not going to interact with anybody online. So it's another remarkable incident of a company basically exerting power on the internet and getting away with it. It's ridiculous. And this happened, by the way, on I believe the 22nd. So I would have talked about this sooner, but I was so taken aback by Alondra Cano and her actions as a Minneapolis councilwoman that I didn't really get a chance to address this in any other way. Well, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to get a hold of Kyle. We're going to start up the Condemn a Candidate section, the little segment here. So if you give me one moment, I'm going to try to get a hold of him on Skype here, and I'll pull him in.
Hello.
Okay. Hey, Kyle. Just so you know, we're on the air.
Yep.
Okay. Can you hear me? Is everything all right?
Yeah. I
Okay.
hear you just fine. Am I doing all right?
Yeah.
Volume?
Audio sounds good to me. So
Okay.
we're gonna do the segment kind of like we did Pitch a Candidate. We'll do Condemn a Candidate. So I'll let you start out just so everybody watching knows. This is Kyle. He was the guest last week to do the Pitch a Candidate for Bernie Sanders, and I am starting a new segment for Condemn a Candidate because you had some kind of strong opinions, let's say,
Yeah.
about Donald Trump. So I'm going to give you the opening like I did, kind of with the Pitch a Candidate thing, and then we'll kind of go topic by topic and talk about what you want to talk about in regards to Donald Trump.
Okay, so basically with Donald Trump, I feel like he is a joke that has gone way too far. I don't believe he's a serious candidate, but people are taking him seriously. And his positions they're almost non-positions, but they're positions of, I wouldn't say power, but they're positions of just trying to force situations to divide us as Americans.
Okay. So now when we talked on Twitter, you're so I just want to make sure I categorize this right. So I don't want to make statements that you don't agree with. So you're very opposed to Trump. You're an anti-Trump kind of person.
I wouldn't say I'm not anti-Trump. I'm just against him running for president. Like I don't believe he should not be the president. He can do whatever he wants to do within the legal system and like whatever he wants to do with his life, whatever, that's totally fine, but I am so against him becoming president.
Okay, so let's go kind of topic by topic, and you can tell me. We'll go topic by topic. You tell me what it is about his policies and his standpoints. The planks in his platform that you disagree with, and why he would be bad as a president. So what's the first thing that comes to mind if somebody says, if I were to walk up to you on the street and said, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, your first initial reaction would be, obviously he's a terrible candidate, but why is he a terrible candidate? Name the first policy you kind of want to talk about.
Well, he wants to violate the First Amendment. He wants to take down mosques. He wants to take down he wants to prevent Muslims from basically practicing their religion, which is number one against the First Amendment. He would have to violate the First Amendment in order to follow through with his plans and what he wants to do. And that's just he has no way. It's impossible. He can't do it. That's my first point. I would say that against Donald Trump. He also wants to violate the Fourth Amendment by deporting all these illegal Mexicans. The only way to go about deporting all those illegals is essentially by violating the Fourth Amendment.
Okay, so when we're talking about he wants to shut down mosques. Now, and again, I can only really talk about the things I directly know about. So you'll have to fill me in on some of the details. Okay. So when he's talking about shutting down mosques, is he saying, I want to get rid of all the mosques in America, or is he saying, I want to get rid of particular ones that we find associated with certain activities?
He may have changed his opinion, but when he first came out and said, "Yeah, we should shut down mosques," he was. I'm pretty sure it was a blanket statement for pretty much saying, "Let's get rid of all of them." He is very anti-Muslim.
Okay, anti-Muslim. Now, when we talked, and this again, we'll kind of come back to it. We'll jump a little bit.
Which is also different from anti-Islam.
Okay, how would you define the difference between anti-Muslim and anti-Islam?
Anti-Islam is essentially the rejection of the ideology. Anti-Muslim is a rejection of the people who are practicing Islam.
Okay, okay. Now, when we're talking about the First Amendment, obviously you're referring to the fact that they can't prohibit the free exercise thereof. So, if by him going in and shutting down mosques, he's prohibiting their ability to worship in the way they want to worship.
Mm-hmm.
I think what this issue really comes down to is, was he referring to all mosques, or was he referring to specifically certain kinds of ones that are engaged in activities that he would feel represent a security risk? Let me put it to you this way. And again, I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe you said, let's get rid of every mosque in America. I really don't know. But let me put it this way. Let's say there was a church, the Westboro Church, and the people associated with it made outrageous statements. Nobody cared. But then they found out that they were storing a cache of weapons inside the church that were illegal, and that the members associated were involved in terrorist activities. Would you be all right with shutting down that church?
Oh man, that's a really tough question because it would inquire removing the First Amendment in order to do so. Because they absolutely have the right to practice their religion. But
is it
if they're a radical terrorist group, I do believe that they should be shut down. Yeah, I do believe that.
Okay, but I guess this is what the argument comes down to. Is their practice of religion, does that include terrorist activities? Because if we say we can't shut down a church or a mosque or a synagogue because that would be interfering with religion, wouldn't that just be telling terrorist groups or people that want to, even if they're not a terrorist, even if they're just some crazy person that wants to plan a massacre, let's say, isn't that saying to them, hey, if you want to get away with it and not have anybody interfere, all you need to do is do it on holy ground because nobody can touch you then?
And I mean, I don't know what your religious beliefs are. I'm an atheist. I believe that there should be a secular state. We should have separation of church and state. And so I feel that you have to allow for investigations to take place within your religious groups and things like that. If there is suspected activity, that's how I believe. I don't believe that anybody should be subject to government inspection without a warrant and without reasonable suspicion. That's how I feel about the situation. I don't think that inherently certain religions are going to cause harm to others.
Okay.
It very depends on the people that are within those organizations.
Well, to answer your question, I'm what you describe as an apatheist, which just means not only am I a fence sitter, but I'm an apathetic, lazy one. So I'm disinterested. to me, it doesn't really matter one way or the other.
Right.
I've got other shit that I'm interested in.
So would you say you're more of an agnostic then?
No, agnostic is open to finding out one way or the other. I really just don't give a shit either or.
All right.
Now, in regards to Trump, and I'm looking up again. The source I'm using is Politico. Now they're talking about this because I was trying to find out exactly what he said. It says this is the opening two paragraphs. The United States will absolutely have no choice but to close down some mosques where some bad things are happening, Donald Trump said in a recent interview, explaining his rationale for doing so. Nobody wants to say this. Nobody wants to shut down religious institutions or anything, but you understand it. A lot of people understand it. We're going to have no choice. The Republican presidential said in an interview from Trump Tower on Fox News with Hannity on Tuesday night. So, and again, this kind of comes back to my initial question. Was he talking about the United States needs to institute a policy where Islam is not allowed and where you can't worship in a mosque? Or is he saying, which this article seems to be hinting at, or at least directly saying, where he said some bad things are happening in some mosques?
Would you mind giving me this article?
Yeah. Here, give me 1 second here.
Okay.
You have your Skype window open?
Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure this is... All right. There you go. That should be... That's a Politico story I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah. So what exactly did you want me to respond to?
Well, and again, when you're talking about the First Amendment, that you they can't put something into place that prohibits the religion itself.
Right. Here's. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I understand where you're going with this.
Okay.
I don't think they should shut down mosques. I feel like they should allow these I feel like the people who run the mosque, should allow themselves to be subject to investigation and allow their people to be subject to investigation, because the. I would also say this should be allowed for churches as well, because there's more right-wing radical terrorist groups in America than Muslim terrorist groups. So where I'm trying to go with this is that they should allow themselves to be investigated rather than just shut down these religious organizations, because that's how you inflame the problem. That's how you make things worse, when you try to shut down people and shut down what they like and what they want to do.
Right, right. My personal opinion on this is I think the religion is not a cover for crime. So if you're committing a crime in a religious institution, you should be subject to investigation, and that should be subject to investigation just like if you did it outside of your house.
Exactly.
Or in your apartment or at your company. You don't have a cloak of invisibility when it comes to religion to get away with doing extremist behavior.
Unless you're Christian. If you're Christian, you get away with pretty much everything.
Well, listen, in regards to Christianity, let's talk about Catholicism. You had priests molesting children, and the Archdiocese knew, the Pope knew. You had all these different groups that seemed to know that these priests were raping kids.
And there's been no investigations. There's been they've hardly condemned them. They just said, "Oh yeah, well, we don't really respect that anymore. We don't really allow it or whatever." But I mean, what have they done to prevent it, or to justify the people that have been raped or whatever, the kids and stuff? What have they done to reprimand?
Right, and I think this goes to two things. Okay, the first is, religions themselves aren't necessarily unified. I mean, we have the idea that the ideology is. So if you're a Catholic, all Catholic churches are the same. If you're Muslim, all mosques are the same. If you're a Jew, all synagogues are the same. But these institutions are run by different groups and different individuals that set them up. So when Trump's talking about shutting down mosques, it's not like he's saying, we're going to shut down all the mosques, or we're going to shut down the mosques because they're only run by one person. He's saying if we find an extremist group that's running a particular one, we want to shut it down and get those people out and investigate. Would that be something you disagree with?
Absolutely, because if he's going to solo out Muslims and stuff, then he better as well be going after all the Christians and stuff that have committed murder and things like that. Just like that recent Planned Parenthood shooter. He said he was doing it in the name of Christianity and for the babies and things like that. That's apparent radical religious terrorism. Why doesn't he go after the churches and the churches that influence people like him?
Well, okay, to answer your question, and again, I don't know 100% of all the facts in these cases, but was the Planned Parenthood shooter, and I think this is what Trump is getting at, and again, I'm only guessing, I don't know what's in his mind, but we're talking about actionable intelligence. Was the Planned Parenthood shooter supplied with weapons from the church that he attended? Was he given support, material, financial, any support in planning this attack from the church that he attended? Because I think when Trump is talking about these mosques, he's saying it's not that we're targeting them because it's Islam. We're targeting them because these extremists use them to coordinate, to facilitate, and to plan attacks. That's why we have to look at them.
Yeah, that's why you should look at them and not shut them down.
Oh, okay, but if you're looking at them and I find a mosque that's run by terrorists and it facilitates terrorist attacks, what should I do with it? Leave it open?
No, you should report it and get those people that are suspicious notified to the FBI.
Okay, so the FBI investigates and finds out the mosque is involved. Its financials are involved. I mean, let's say this Planned Parenthood shooter, let's say the church did facilitate his attack. They gave him the gun, and they used money from the donations to fund it. So wouldn't shutting down the church prevent future attacks? It's using the mechanism as the church as cover to facilitate the attacks. The people running the church are financing the attacks.
Because if you don't stop the people that are involved in those types of actions and things like that, you're not gonna solve the problem. You're just shutting down an institute for the sake of shutting it down.
No, they are solving the problem. And again, I think this goes back to what I think he's addressing. He's talking about shutting down mosques that are used by terrorists, that are used by extremists who use it to fund and plan and pull these attacks off. Obviously, he's not going to just shut it down and then not arrest them. But he's saying that the mosque itself is being used in a principal capacity. It's being used in a certain way to facilitate these attacks. That's why I go back to the Planned Parenthood thing. If you could show me, I mean, if the killer said, if this crazy motherfucker had said, "Oh my God, I killed all these people for the babies because the priest or the minister, was he Catholic or Protestant? Do you know?"
To be honest, perfectly honest, I do not know.
It doesn't even really matter. But you get it. If it was whatever the church he goes to. But if he had said, I was provided material support, we planned it out in the priest's office, we got donation money to do it. So yeah, you want to obviously investigate the priest, you want to investigate the people involved in it, but you want to shut down that church so you can find out exactly who's involved, what the financial connections are, what organizations are involved, what all these relationships are. That seems to be what he's talking about. It's not like he's saying we're going to put a constitutional amendment in place that says go away Islam.
See, where I stand on this is that I don't believe that those churches and mosques should be shut down, because there are people that attend those churches and mosques that don't partake in those radical ideas.
They're not being prevented from going to another church or mosque, though.
That is true, but let's just say I'm not saying that this is a perfect example. Let's just say you're in the middle of Ohio or somewhere where it's a small city and there's only one church or one mosque, and then there's people there that are considered radical terrorists. Do you shut down the entire church or mosque just because of a few people there, and that gets shut down for the rest of the city because there's only one, and now there's no church or mosque or whatever? It's a really hard position to have, to say yes, we're going to shut them down and we're not going to allow them. It's something. It's not something that's easy to stand on,
Okay, Kyle. I get what your point is, but let me counter with this. Let's say that I'm a terrorist, and I open up a company. And the only reason my company exists in the town wherever I am is because I want to fund, plan, and facilitate terrorist attacks. Now, I happen to have customers that come into my company and buy my widgets. But I don't really make the widget. The widgets are secondary. I don't give a shit about the widgets. I just want to blow up Americans because I'm a horrible, evil terrorist. I'm some crazy extremist, who knows what kind, but I'm just out to get people. Now, looking at that situation, the FBI comes in and says, yeah, the company obviously is used for this purpose. Yeah, the people involved in the company obviously are associated with this purpose. Let's shut it down. You wouldn't say, oh no, you can't shut down that company. Think of the people; they need widgets.
Well, that's a totally different situation. That's a business, and that's entirely subject to the criminal justice system, and that can be shut down.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, why should it be different? Why should we allow somebody to do that exact same thing and just get away with it? What if they were Scientologists doing it? I mean, we're talking about like these old religions. What if David Miscavige suddenly started funding terrorist attacks and he was using Scientology to do it and Scientology centers to do it? Would we say, hey, there are Scientologists that need to go to that church, so he's protected. We can't ever get rid of Scientology. We can't ever get rid of that particular facility because it's a religion. But if it were a company, we could totally get rid of it. You don't think that's a weird disconnect?
No, I don't, because I think that you have to be able to analyze the situation for what it is. And what I mean by that is you have to be able to see, like, you have to take into account how many people attend that religious facility and which percentage of them are involved in radical ideas and radical terrorism, if the possibility arises. It's more so you should investigate the people, not the facility, and not shutting it down and not shutting down people's religious ideas as a whole.
Yeah, but Trump isn't attacking. He's not saying that we need to get rid of Islam. He's saying we need to...
What do you mean? He's absolutely attacking Muslims and things like that. When he has stances like shutting down mosques and keeping Muslims in databases and preventing them from going in and out of the country, that's entirely attacking and targeting Muslims.
Oh, okay.
That's what it is.
Okay, well, let's move to that subject then. We'll talk about that because it's directly related. Mm-hmm. So what is your position on that? When Donald Trump talks about what he wants to do in regards to Muslim immigration, what do you think of it? Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you're talking about, right? Databases or are you saying that Trump was saying all Muslims in the United States need to be monitored?
I don't believe it was those words, but he said that there needs to be a database for Muslims. That's about as nuanced as it gets, I believe, because it was a reporter. He was asking him questions, and he brought up the analogy. It's like, what's the difference between keeping Muslims in databases here and keeping Jews in, in a database in Nazi Germany. And you know what? You remember what his response was?
What's that?
You tell me. That was Donald Trump's response to that question.
Okay, I'm just trying to pull up, and again, I don't have these quotes just directly because I wasn't sure exactly what we're going to talk about. I want to try to pull something up so I at least have an idea of what he's talking about.
I'm trying to get you that exact sound clip of when the interviewer was asking him a question.
Okay, this looks like it's from November 19th from Yahoo News.
Yeah, I do believe it was a Yahoo.
Okay, asked Trump about his position on increased surveillance of American Muslims. And this is what follows. France declared the state of emergency where they closed the borders and they established some degree of warrantless searches. I know how you feel about the borders, but do you think there is some state of emergency here? Do we need warrantless searches of Muslims, the reporter asked. We're going to have to do certain things that were frankly unthinkable a year ago, Trump said. The Yahoo reporter then asked Trump, do you think we need to register Muslims in some type of database or note their religion on their ID? Trump responded, we're going to have to look at a lot of things very closely. We're going to have to look at the mosques. We're going to have to look very, very carefully. Here, Trump didn't reject the idea of Muslim registry, but he also didn't give an affirmative yes that he wanted to create such a database.
I wanted to step in here and say, so let's just say he does implement this program I'm just being theoretical of President Trump. He implements this program of being able to watch Muslims and stuff, and let's just say we absolutely eliminate radical Islam and things like that. Do you think he's going to stop monitoring people, or do you think he's going to expand it?
Well, I've already gone on record as saying that one of my reasons that I am not a Trump supporter, that I'm not voting for Donald Trump, is that I dislike his use of the surveillance state. Right. So he's a
statist.
You're not going to find me agreeing with the idea that we need to create more databases and registries for American citizens.
It's a non-position. It's so ridiculous that it only enforces the establishment status quo.
Okay. So do you feel, and I think this gets to the more core issue at heart here, do you feel Donald Trump is making these statements because he believes there is a legitimate security threat to the United States, and he believes, for whatever reason, this is the best response to bring to it? Or do you think that Donald Trump, just at the heart, at his core, hates people that are different than him, and that he wants to institute systems that are, racist or classist, or target people like Muslims and Mexicans just for the hell of it because he has a grudge? Which do you think he falls on between those two poles? Where would you place him on that scale?
I don't want to say he's a non-genuine person. I want to say that, yeah, he cares about like the safety of the Americans and stuff like that, but how he goes about it is just totally wrong. There's better ways to go about doing what he proposes to do.
Okay, what would your, I guess, counter to that be? So let's say Donald Trump says, I believe that there are Muslim extremists that are trying to set up a terror state, overseas in the Middle East. They want to see the implementation of Sharia law. They want to see a worldwide caliphate. I believe that they hate Western values. I believe that they want to come here and harm us for whatever reason, be it economic or ideological differences. And we need to put into place systems that stop that from happening.
Well, first of all, even going back, I hope this isn't a null point, but going back to like the day of 9/11, we had evidence that there were going to be attacks on the World Trade Center and the Twin Towers, but the government didn't do anything about it. They knew that it was going to happen. And then how far do you go to implement these statist programs like the NSA and things like that to gather intelligence and information on potential terrorists, but you still don't do anything about it? You understand what I'm saying? Like with all these,
you feel that we already have all these systems in place.
Yeah, we are. Oh, absolutely, we already have all the tools that we need,
and they're not being utilized properly.
Exactly, that's exactly it.
Okay,
they're being utilized to allow corporate America to spy on us and use us and advertise to us directly, and literally all of our conversations and things like that. All those programs like the NSA and things like that where they collect metadata, and they're using it to just advertise to us essentially rather than public safety.
So what is your position then on things like surveillance observation on things like putting bugs in place into hardware or having software that has backdoors for the NSA, warrantless wiretaps, that kind of stuff. Do you think that's necessary for security, or do you think that
No.
should all be done away with?
That's yeah, absolutely. It should all just be done away with. It's entirely enforcing the will of the corporations and the government,
Okay.
the political elite.
So if we get rid of these systems, and again, I'm not arguing with you against them. I'm not a person that wants to trade freedom for security. So we get away, from the system we have. We get rid of these systems. What though would your counter be? I mean, if there really is a threat, if Donald Trump is right, if different political analysts are right, if people looking at the situation say, yeah, you know what, there is some stuff going on worldwide that we really do need to be paying attention to, and it presents a risk to us. How would you propose we deal with that if Donald Trump's methodology, if his proposals are wrong? What would your counter to that be?
For personal safety, or are you talking about like as a community?
For the country itself. Trump is talking about building walls to keep out immigrants. He's talking about creating databases. He's talking about shutting down certain mosques to investigate people that might be extremists. What would your counter to that be? If those are the wrong approaches, what would the right approaches be to dealing with national security and dealing with extremists and terrorists?
Well, for one, we have the Second Amendment. We should. I believe that the majority of if not every single citizen, like in Switzerland, they should be educated about how to use a firearm, and they should be required to be tested their knowledge of how to use a firearm safely. And so when you're entire, like, I'm just using Switzerland as an example, they have their, once you're 18, you go into the military and you become trained and stuff how to use a firearm, and then once you're out, you keep your firearm, and everybody is required to show that they know how to use it, otherwise it gets revoked.
Okay, so
I feel like implementing a system like that where you keep the Americans educated about how to use something like a firearm, that's the best weapon against terrorism.
So, okay, hold on. So Kyle, all right.
Sorry if that was a little unclear.
No. It's clear. I'm just laughing because it's funny. You think the response to terrorist or potential terrorist threats is arming every single American citizen and teaching them how to use a gun?
No. I'm just using Switzerland as an example. Their crime rates are extremely low. I don't know if you know this, but they have extremely low crime rates. They have no.
What's their demographics?
What do you mean?
What is Switzerland a majority of?
Swiss people. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that.
Okay, but going back to this, I mean,
are you trying to? I mean, are you trying to make a point here that they're not Muslim or something like that? Is that what you're trying to make?
I don't. I don't know. Maybe that was a subtle answer.
Okay.
But going back to the gun thing, do you know who was trained to use guns? The San Bernardino terrorists. They were trained. They knew how to use them. They had access to them. So I mean, training everybody to use guns, they already knew how to use them and they already had access to them. So how does that prevent another San Bernardino? Are you saying the only way to stop bad guys with bombs is good guys with guns?
It's one of the best ways, but I believe that there should be common sense gun safety laws, like being able to do the people. There's over 80% of the mass shootings this year were bought legally. All the guns that were bought, they were bought legally. I think there should be a massive reform to how guns are purchased and how background checks are implemented.
Okay, so let's say they reform, gun policies. Let's say they reform gun laws. How am I going to stop a guy in body armor with an AK-47 with a 9mm?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Skype might be cutting out in and out a little bit. OBS is a bit resource intensive sometimes.
Yeah.
How am I going to stop a bad guy, say a terrorist or whatever it is, who's got body armor, an AK-47 with a 9mm gun?
Yeah, that's a situation that's really hard to do as an individual. But I believe if we had the systems of proper intelligence, like with the NSA, they would have been able to properly find out that this guy was planning a terrorist attack before it happened.
But Kyle, I mean, we already discussed you want to get rid of the NSA's tools, and I am not arguing against that either. I don't like the idea that the NSA has PRISM and warrantless wiretaps and all that shit. It bothers me from a perspective of what my rights and freedoms are under the Constitution.
Right. Well, I understand that you're trying to say that, but what I'm saying is we have it now, but it's just not being used properly. If we're gonna have it, it needs to be used properly.
Okay, but how do you reconcile? Okay, so I guess this is how do I put this? If you're saying that using the system properly would help to prevent terrorist attacks, Now, how can you then criticize Trump, who wants to use those systems and maybe even expand them? Wouldn't that make us more secure?
No, it would not.
But you're saying if we have the tools and we use them properly now, we can stop terrorists. So isn't warrantless wiretaps and PRISM a good thing?
It is not. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to use it as a tool because it exists and it's here now. I don't agree with it, but it doesn't mean we can't use it.
Okay. Okay, we'll table this one and move on. So
Yeah.
we've talked about a little bit about the Moss thing, and we've talked a little bit about the database thing. And I was reading through more just to follow up what I said with Yahoo News. That apparently he went on November 20th on MSNBC, and a reporter had asked him, "Should there be databases that and systems in place that track Muslims in the country?" And Trump's response was, "There should be a lot of systems beyond databases. I mean, we should have a lot of systems." Trump then digressed to talk about a wall along the southern border before the reporter interjected, "But that's something your White House would like to implement." "I certainly would implement that, absolutely," Trump said. Here's where we're not clear if Trump was talking about building the wall or building the database. So again, I don't know. You could be completely right. Maybe he wants to put everybody in a database that is Muslim. Maybe he doesn't. It's a little confusing. It seems like two different reporters tried to ask him about this, and neither got really a solid answer. So anyway, moving along from that, moving along from the Moss thing and from the from the Muslim database thing. What other policies that Trump has, or what about his character, do you find unappealing? Do you think would make him a bad president or a bad politician?
When he says he's a leader, I just laugh because he has gone through 4 corporate bankruptcies, and that to me, that doesn't scream leadership. That just screams to me failure and incompetency. Because did you know that if he would have just not tried to be a CEO and just stuck to like a hobby like finger painting, and he just invested his father's inheritance, he would be so much more rich. He would be so much richer than he is now if he just did nothing versus trying to go out and be a venture capitalist as he has.
Right, but Trump's net worth is, I believe, what is it, $10 billion?
I don't know off the top of my head. It changes almost every time he talks about it.
Right. Let's say that that's close to what it is. Maybe it's a little less, maybe it's a little more, but 10 billion. It seems fairly accurate. Trump has made a lot of money building up businesses, and that's
I don't deny that.
And that's after failures and bankruptcies, and he's still as rich as he is. He's still as powerful as he is.
Well, because he kind of skirted everything under the rug and took all the money.
Right, but doesn't that show that he's got a good business sense?
That shows that he's going to try and that shows me that he's going to try and screw over the American people and try and give himself more power, more money, if anything. That's how I see it. I don't know if that's what he plans to do because there's no real way to prove that, but that's how I feel about it.
But you can't seriously believe that Donald Trump would use the presidency of the United States to make himself richer. I mean, you think that he wants to go into office and rob the Treasury?
No, I did not imply that.
Okay, well, how do you mean that he would use the office then to make himself richer?
He would implement laws and things like that to make the system more rigged for him and people and billionaires like him.
Okay.
Well, I mean, why if you're in a position of power to make the laws, why wouldn't he try to make himself more rich? Like that's just the obvious go-to for somebody like him.
Okay, and you don't think that he is, how do I put this? You don't think he's successful enough or rich enough at this point that he wouldn't have a motivation to do something like that? You think that he's greedy to the point where the moment he gets into power, he would abuse the system in any way he could to stack the deck in his favor?
No, I think he would implement it kind of like how Obama and Bush did. He would like implement these bills and things under the rug and within like huge bills and things like that, like the CISA bill that just passed in the omnibus bill.
Right.
Like things like that. You know what I'm talking about? Where they just kind of throw these like huge big deal acts and things into large bills and things like that, and then it just goes largely unnoticed.
Right,
I think that's exactly the approach he would take.
Right, but you understand that the president doesn't make law; he signs it into law. It's
Right.
Congress that makes law. It's Congress that balances the budget. They have the control of the purse strings. So how is Donald Trump going to put in place laws that favor him in business if Congress, if the House, if the Senate are against that?
Well, the thing is that most Republicans are for Trump and what he's proposing. That's the scary thing, because let's just say with 4 years into the Trump presidency, we're going to be having different senators. We're not completely, but we're going to have different congressmen and things like that. What if they're like, yeah, I love Trump and things like that? And so let's say he writes those bills and things like that are in favor of corporate billionaires and things like that, and that those senators they approve of these and they get them signed into law. I'm not saying that this is an out of left field idea. I think that's a certain possibility.
Okay. All right. So you feel that the next election, outside of Trump, putting him aside, but as far as senators and representatives go, you think that the structure would be changed enough that he would have the power to be able to push through things like that. That's one of your concerns.
Just hold on. Just imagine for a second. We have the NDAA. You understand what that means, right?
The National Defense Authorization Act?
Yes.
Yeah.
That basically gives the president infinite power to detain anybody for any reason.
Right. And whose presidency did that come into power under?
Obama.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I do not like Obama.
Okay. So you're worried that he would use the NDAA or the provisions therein to. I guess I'm trying to get.
I don't think he would close down Gitmo. I don't think he would close. I don't think he would. I don't think he is nuanced enough to be a president.
Okay. I don't think. Well, I mean, to be fair though, Gitmo wasn't closed under Obama either.
That's another reason why I don't like him.
Okay. All right. So you have concerns that Trump would try to weasel his way into better deals. Maybe, let's put it plainly, fuck with the tax code. Put corporate interests ahead of everybody else, and he'd sneak it into something like an omnibus. He'd sneak it into something like an NDAA. He'd find a way to get it in there where the American people wouldn't really be paying attention, and where the House and the Senate would pass it because they need to pass it because maybe it's a budget bill or something else, and they just aren't, awake at the wheel. And it would favor it. Okay. So it seems like we have three core issues. Now, is there anything else about Trump as an individual or about any policies that he has that you find distasteful or you don't like for him to be a president?
He's a socialist when it's convenient for him, essentially. And what I mean by that is when he talks about building a wall, that's literally a socialist policy. He's trying to get government workers. He's trying to get people to work for the government. That's socialism. Is that not?
It was my understanding that he was having Mexico pay for it.
Well, at first he was talking about we're just going to build that wall, and then I believe that came up that he said he wanted to make Mexico pay for it. But obviously that's fucking ridiculous. I don't think Mexico would be like, we're not going to fucking pay for that wall. Would you go to your neighbor and say, "Hey, build a fucking wall. Build a nice fence between us." And do you think they would just be like, "Fuck off," or do you think they'd be like, "Yeah, dude, I'll totally build that wall for you"?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have a nuclear missile I can point at my neighbor, but that might influence their their response.
Yeah. That's another particular reason why I don't like Trump. He's going to have his finger on the big red button. He's going to be the one in control of the nuclear capabilities of this country. He's dangerous. He's incompetent and he's dangerous.
Okay, well we'll address both those things. Let's start with the first one though. How is it socialism though if he's getting another country to pay for the wall being built? It sounds like he's just employing a bunch of Americans at that point. Wouldn't that be capitalist? He's getting somebody to pay for the service. He's not paying for it himself. It's not taxpayers.
But it's a public sector job. That means it's a socialist program. It's a social program.
So all government jobs are socialist?
In a sense, yes. They're a social program. They stem from socialism. Yeah.
Okay, so all government jobs. So everybody in the military, at the IRS, judges, a guy working at the post office. Those aren't services that are being provided, and they're paid.
Those are like mandatory things. Things like judges and courts, the court system, and the police and things like those are pretty much mandatory. Those aren't. I wouldn't describe those as socialist programs.
Okay. Now we had a discussion. This goes back to the first encounter on Facebook, where you had mentioned the New Deal, and you were talking about Bernie Sanders, and you were saying that I didn't understand the New Deal. And that I didn't understand Roosevelt and a lot of his policies that people could describe as socialism, a social safety net's being put in place. You're talking about Social Security. You're talking.
I meant by okay, go ahead.
You're talking about Social Security. You're talking about welfare and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how could one of your concerns, I guess, be that Trump is a socialist when you were lauding?
When it's convenient for him, I wanted to say he's a socialist when it's convenient for him and his poll numbers.
Okay, so you don't think, but I mean, you don't think Trump genuinely wants a wall built?
No, he definitely does.
So that wouldn't be just convenient for him. I mean, he really believes in it.
That's the worst part.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, how is it bad if Trump has let's say you're right. Let's say Trump has socialist ideas and he wants to implement them. I mean, we can even talk about the single payer tax or the single payer medical system later on. But let's say he's got these socialist ideas and he wants to implement them. How can you condemn him for that? But then laud Bernie Sanders. You can't say it's convenient for Trump just because of his poll numbers, because you just said that he really believes in it. Doesn't just like Sanders really believes in the programs and the ideas that he puts forward.
Because honestly, what would building that wall? I don't think it would benefit anybody. I don't think it would benefit Americans, and I don't think it would benefit the Mexicans either. I feel like
it's not going to benefit the Mexicans. That was the point of building a wall, though. I mean, you're right.
you have to come up with a solution between the states. What is like the main problem between Mexico and America? I would say it's the drug war and things like that, right?
I'd say you got a lot of things. You've got a source of illegal immigration. You've got drug activity, the cartels.
Well, there's more illegal immigrants leaving America than there are coming to America.
Yeah, I've seen that statistic cited, but the fact is we still have a very large population of illegal immigrants in the U.S., and that deficit that you're talking about is 200,000 per year. If we have 10 million illegal immigrants and only 200,000 are leaving the country themselves, that means that, what is that? So that's 50 years. It'll take 50 years for the illegal immigrants to leave. By then they'll have so many fucking kids that they won't need illegal immigrants to come over the border. They'll be making their own in the country.
And that doesn't go against what America believes as a whole. Because we have the 14th Amendment where you're allowed to become born into this country and you're a natural born citizen. It doesn't matter if your parents were from Mexico or not. You're a natural born citizen.
You're talking about anchor babies.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't believe in that term. Because there's so many great people have been a result as of what people like to call anchor babies that it's pretty disingenuous to consider.
They may be great people, but that is what they are. They're anchor babies. They were born here and they anchor the parents here. They're anchor babies. I mean, it could be fucking Einstein. It could be, you could tell me Lincoln was an anchor baby. It doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, that's what they are.
I understand that.
Okay.
I just disagree with the term and using it as a derogatory statement.
I'm not using it as a derogatory statement. I'm just
most people do though.
Okay, but that's the term that I'm familiar with is anchor baby, and the reason it is because that's what it does. It anchors them in the country. We're getting off track with that statistic, but so you're talking about the benefit to the United States people and the Mexican people, and you don't think the wall would work. You don't think it's a good idea. What exactly about the wall do you disagree with, or what do you think is not a good idea about it?
It's going to cost hell of a lot of money, and Lord knows that we need to spend less money on things that benefit corporate and state entities and more benefit the individual and the citizens.
Okay, but let's say Trump's plan succeeds. He builds a wall and Mexico pays for it. So it hasn't really cost the American.
That just sounds ridiculous. I can't imagine that happening.
Well, again, it sounds ridiculous that a man who had 4 bankruptcies has $10 billion, but fuck, he does. So let's say he pulls it off. Let's say he gets Mexico to pay for the wall. So, he builds a wall, Mexico pays for it for whatever reason, however he pulls it off. Maybe he threatens the North American Free Trade Agreement. Maybe he says, we're not going to, do business. We're just going to do it with Canada. I don't know. But let's say he does that. How would then that be a deficit to the American people? What would your problem outside of the financing, I guess is what I'm asking, be with the idea of a wall between the border?
Families, for one. You're going to be separating so many families from each other, and it's going to create it's going to cause a lot of tension between Mexico and America.
What do you mean by families, though? I guess that's what I'm asking you. Are you talking about between the illegal immigrants and their families, or between just American citizens and families in Mexico?
Yeah, exactly. American citizens and families in Mexico. Like I have personal friends that have families in Mexico, and they go like every year or every other year to go see them and things like that. And I feel like you're gonna be causing a real halt between being able to travel between the two countries when you build a wall like that. There's gonna be traffic. There's gonna be it's gonna be very inconvenient.
Well, to be fair, though, I mean, it's a wall, not a force field. I mean, there are going to obviously be entry and exit points through the wall. The people are still going to need to go across the border. So, I mean, how is that prohibiting families from seeing each other? You're telling me that you think an extra 5 minutes in drive time is going to make it impossible for me to go to Mexico?
I don't think it's going to be an extra 5 minutes. It's not going to. It's going to be hours, if not days, to be able to get through because there's going to be checkpoints, and they're going to be like, "All right, we have to make sure that you're okay and whatnot." It would be a long process just to get through the wall. You know that.
I don't know, to be honest. I mean,
neither do I, because this is entirely theoretical. It's not.
When you're looking at the Berlin Wall, I mean,
that eventually got torn down.
Yeah, I understand that, but it didn't take people days to get through when they had official business and they were cleared to go.
But how I feel Donald Trump will go about it is he wants to keep the Mexicans out, period.
So you think he's not just against illegal immigration, he's against immigration just as as a concept itself.
Well, as you hear when he's talking about all these Syrian refugees and things like that, he's saying, no, we should not be taking any Syrian refugees. And he doesn't want people coming into this country that are potentially Muslim or Mexican.
You don't think he has a point, though, in saying that we have a risk inherent in allowing specifically Syrian refugees in? When you look at what happened in Paris, it was a person pretending to be a Syrian refugee that, took part in the terrorist attack.
Right. I understand that, but no, the people that took part in the Paris terrorist attack, they were French citizens.
You had people using fake passports getting into the country. There weren't all French citizens.
Not all, but a lot of them were.
Yeah, but not. What I'm saying is they still got in. So when you hear Trump saying, I think it's a risk allowing Syrian refugees into the United States, whether it's at all or we need more vetting or we need a better system in place.
There needs to be a better interview process before we let them in. We need to understand who they are and what their intentions are and what connections that they have in America and connections even back in Syria and wherever. Or I'm not saying Syria exactly because that place is a fucking shithole now. It's all blown to shit. But they should be more cautious of who they let in. And I believe Obama has even stated that they have these interview processes before they just allow Syrian refugees in.
Okay. Well, my perspective, and again, I'm not voting for Trump, so I'm not a Trump supporter, but my perspective on it is that he has a reasonable concern with Syrian refugees coming in, and that he has a...
I don't think he has a reasonable concern. I think it's reasonable. I think he's being... I think he's just pandering to the fear-mongering. Put aside other candidates.
Okay, put aside Paris. San Bernardino, that was somebody who was an immigrant. His wife was an immigrant. She immigrated in. She got a visa in. Now, you don't think that... we had a terrorist attack. We had 20-plus people die because of an immigrant.
I wouldn't say that it's the fault of allowing immigrants in. I say it's the fault of allowing those particular immigrants in.
What is that particular immigrant? I want you to tell me what that particular immigrant was.
Yeah, they were Muslim, and they were... I don't know exactly their entire the life history of where they're from and what they did, but yeah, they were Muslims and things like that. But that's when you have to be able to analyze the situation accordingly. You can't just say, no, we have to prevent all Syrian refugees. We have to prevent all Muslim immigrants from coming in. Like, you can't just because of a few. I'm not saying, well, in comparison to right-wing terrorists, you can't just allow a few to prevent the many from coming in.
Okay, so I mean, what would your solution be then? I mean, how are you going to, if we're not going to be more proactive in regards to immigration, if we're not going to build a wall, aren't we opening ourselves up? I mean, we have Islamic. We have Islamic extremists that we know want to do damage to the United States, that have carried that out successfully. Not just shit like 9/11, but San Bernardino and events that transpired in between the two. So, are we not? You don't think that this kind of open door, nonchalant policy is dangerous to the American people?
I don't disagree, but I think there are even bigger issues at hand than just combating radical Islam and people who are terrorists. I think there's a bigger issue at hand. I think we have to understand that they're able to purchase guns so easily and without any sort of like background check. You can just go to a gun show and get a gun. Like, it's not hard.
Well, yeah, Kyle, but one of the biggest terrorist attack we had, they flew a fucking plane into a building. So, I mean, how are you going to ban assault planes? No. You know what I mean? Like, they found a way to do a terrorist attack, you know what I mean, with something that did a lot more damage than a pistol.
And since then, we've implemented programs that prevent situations like that from happening. Like, we haven't had a 9/11 attack since 9/11. So I believe that what we've done so far is a pretty good deterrent against hijackers.
Right, but what I'm saying here, Kyle, is it's not... I don't want people to get the idea that the only means for a terrorist to do damage or kill people is a gun.
Right.
There are many other ways of doing it. Who knows? They could go make a fucking fertilizer bomb. We can't ban assault fertilizer.
But the biggest problem in America is guns. That's the majority of death. The cause of death in America is.
But
from
Kyle,
gun violence.
did you not just tell me earlier that you want a Swiss model where everybody is taught
No,
how
no,
to
no.
use?
I didn't say that's what I want. I'm just saying.
No, you brought that up as an example, though. So, I mean, if guns are a problem, as you say they are, then how would the Swiss model of protecting ourselves from terrorist attacks?
The guns are not the problem. It's the people not being educated how to use them properly and when to use them.
How do you educate a terrorist when to properly use a gun?
What? That's a non-question.
I know it is because it's ridiculous. What I'm saying is, if you propose a system where you're educating people to be smart about using guns, how is that preventing a terrorist from shooting somebody? I mean, either you're going to have to address the issue
because you're teaching the people, not the terrorists, the so-called good guys, to how to use a weapon and when to use it effectively and safely. You're essentially teaching the people how to prevent these kind of things from happening. Not, I wouldn't say prevent them, but to act upon them and prevent more deaths than what may have already been caused.
Oh, okay. So you've educated the people. Let me, before I go on with this, would you, and this is outside of our conversation, as far as amendments go and gun rights in the country, do you believe all guns should be banned, or there should be people should have access to guns?
People should have access to guns. Guns are a good thing.
Okay, so guns are a good thing, and we have guns in the country, and you believe that people should be educated to use those guns?
Yeah.
Okay. How does that, though, prevent terrorists from getting those guns and using those guns?
You have to have background checks before they're able to purchase them. Like I said.
But Kyle, here's this kind of segues into it. We don't have a database anymore for Muslims because Trump didn't get elected, and the NSA program's been pulled down. In a good world, in a perfect world, in a world where we don't have this shit going on, so there are no surveillance programs, there are no databases. So what does the background check show though? Why it's not going to say they're Muslim, right? Because you can't do that. So what is it showing on the background check that would make me think they're a terrorist?
This is entirely theoretical.
I know, and I'm saying it's entirely theoretically. We're theoretical. We're talking about a hypothetical situation.
That's something that's really hard to have a nuanced opinion on because it requires data. It requires time to get the data needed to make an opinion on something like that.
Well, okay, even in the current age, if I were to go get a gun and they did a background check, what exactly is going to tell them I'm a terrorist?
Your history of who you talk to and why.
Who I talk to and why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
it's pretty. I would say for the government, it's pretty easy for them to be able to track your conversations and who you've been talking to. Like they have those tools.
Okay, I'm sorry. The chat is shouting right now.
Sure, whatever. I'm not paying attention to them.
Okay. All right. Let's table this. We got off track. God, do you remember
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. We were talking about the border wall. We were talking about Mexico and America. And I remember we had finished up talking about the difficulty for families to see each other. So we've talked about a few things. We got about another 20 minutes here, so I'll start to kind of close up a little bit. But what is there anything else before we move on? Is there anything else that really stands out about Trump to you that you want to raise? That you've got people listening. So let's say.
So basically, Trump, he wants to stampede all over the First, the Fourth, and the 14th Amendment, but he stands very, very, very clear on the Second Amendment and that it cannot be revoked or it cannot be changed. I feel like he's not genuine. He's playing the political game. If you understand what I mean, right?
Well, yeah, we had somebody on earlier who was talking about Rand Paul, and one of the things they had mentioned about, I believe they had mentioned about Trump was that he had the ability of showmanship. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like,
exactly.
He knows how to present himself to an audience to make himself appealing.
And I feel like if he does get the Republican nomination, and he goes up against Hillary or Bernie Sanders, I feel like he's going to have to change his positions in order to be electable. He's going to have to go back on some of the things that he said.
Okay.
If he wants to get the base of the Democrats and things like that, because you have to be able to reach over and talk to those people to get their votes, and it turns out there's more Democrats in this country currently than Republicans, and if you cannot get their vote and get their support, I don't think he can't win.
Well, I don't know necessarily if that's true. I mean, it comes down to who's voting and how many. I don't know if you watched the stream earlier at the beginning, but we played.
I watched a little bit.
Yeah, I played a clip from MSNBC where they were talking about the Hillary campaign. Because let's say Trump hypothetically got the nomination. They were talking about the Hillary campaign, and she was making some comments about Donald Trump and made some allegations about sexist talk or behavior. And he had said, "Are you talking to me?" Basically, you might want to be careful with that. And the reporters had brought up that she really should be careful about that. That's not something they want to bring up to Donald Trump. It makes it seem like, and there are rumors going around in speculation right now, that Donald Trump has a lot of dirt on the Clintons, and that he knows.
I believe he does.
Right. So you don't think that Trump would be able to use something like that? I don't think he'd have to necessarily walk back his position. If Donald Trump ran against Hillary and he really did have some kind of allegation and evidence of rapes taking place or some kind of really abhorrent sexual behavior on the part of the Clintons, I think that would be the end of Hillary's campaign.
You know that Donald Trump has rape allegations against him.
Is that something that Hillary's brought up, or is that something that's come out of the press? I don't know.
That's just the fact and things like that. But it's not something that Hillary has said or anything. That's just history. I'm just saying that Donald Trump has had rape allegations towards him.
From where?
I believe his ex-wife and maybe a few other people.
Okay, so his ex-wife accused him of rape. Are you talking about Ivanka or Ivana or whatever the hell her name is?
I can't remember. It's one of them. I don't remember off the top of my head. I just know that they exist. Now, if you want me to, I'll pull it up right here. Hold on.
Yeah, again, that's something I'm just not familiar with, so I don't know.
Yeah, it is Ivana. Yep.
Okay, and so she accused him of what was her accusation? Does it say?
Here, I'll give you the article.
Okay.
The top, it's from the Daily Beast, so anybody that is listening. It says the title is "Ex-Wife: Donald Trump made me feel violated during sex," and Ivana Trump once accused the real estate tycoon of rape, although later she clarified not in the criminal sense. What exactly does that mean?
It means that his ex-wife is crazy. Apparently, I don't know how you could say somebody raped me, but not in the. What is that? I have no idea what the fuck that means.
What I think is I think he paid her off to keep her silent because he's a fucking billionaire. He's rich. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
I like the quote in the follow-up. I mean, somebody's doing it. Who's doing the raping? Donald Trump said when asked to defend his characterization, talking about Mexican immigrants being a rapist. I don't know what Ivana Trump means by. She once accused the real estate tycoon of rape, although she later clarified not in the criminal sense. I would say that makes me a tiny bit hesitant after watching certain college cases go forward where rape accusations were thrown out. I'm talking about like people like Meg Lanker Smith or whatever her name was. People like that who would make these wild accusations about rape and sexual assault, and then it bared no fruit later on. So I don't know if Ivana is covering herself knowing that she couldn't go to court. The speculation as far as Hillary goes, and Bill Clinton specifically, and again, I don't know. It's only
Bill
speculation.
Clinton did coke in the White House, man.
Right, but again, it's speculation. I don't know. It's just what's been going around. But that Bill Clinton allegedly raped some younger women in a very brutal way.
I heard about that.
So
I've read about it.
What I'm saying is, while this Ivana thing, you're right, Hillary could bring it up. You don't think it would be really damaging to Hillary Clinton's campaign if it came out that her husband had raped women and that she had helped? That's the other thing too.
I feel like it would be damaging not just to Hillary's campaign. I feel like it would be damaging to both of their campaigns if they brought it up in a political debate because they're not trying. They should be talking about substance and policy, not about whether or not they raped somebody.
No, somebody in chat said that she recanted later on. I think they're referring to Ivana. Again, chat, I don't know. If I knew more about this, I could say I don't. So I'm just going to go on what the article's saying, and it says she accused him of it, not in a criminal sense. I don't know what that means necessarily. But one of the other allegations against Hillary wasn't just that Clinton was engaged in some of these activities, her husband, I mean, but that she had laughed in reaction to them. So,
Of course you would.
So that seems like it would be damaging. Now, I don't know what a Sanders-Trump runoff would look like. I don't know.
It would be very interesting to watch. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying is I don't know how they'd attack each other. I think Sanders.
I don't think Bernie Sanders would attack him. I think he would just talk about what he believes in his policies and what he believes this country should be.
Right, that's what I was going to say. I think Sanders would probably go after his policies. He had the opportunity to go after Hillary.
Whereas Donald Trump would just label him a socialist and try to smear him.
Right. Well, I mean, Sanders. Yeah, I'm fairly certain he would.
We've seen that before. We've heard of these types of things before in history past.
Okay. So to kind of sum up what we've talked about, then you disagree with the the notion, and again, it's really iffy from what I read. It seems like he didn't give a really direct answer about the database thing. But you disagree with the notion, even if just as a whole by itself, that we should have a Muslim database. You think that the immigration policies he's proposing are counterintuitive to the country. You think the wall is a bad idea. You think that he might abuse his position in the White House to try to create some kind of tax loophole or financing situation where he was favored over other people to, I guess, acquire more wealth or help out his rich friends, something like that. And you don't think he's a very
If not just himself.
Oh, okay. And you don't think he's a very genuine person.
I do not.
Okay. All right, Kyle. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I hadn't heard the Ivana Trump thing. I don't know what the hell she's talking about. When you say not in a criminal sense is really weird.
That's what I'm saying. That the people Donald Trump associates with, and he's a real shady character. He tries to come off as this straight shooter and somebody who can get shit done when he can't even get his life together. I don't want to say he can't get his life together, but he can't get like his background together. You know what I'm saying? Like when he accuses Mexico or bringing in rapists and drug dealers and things like that, and being mostly crime related when they come over here, when he can't even get things right about himself, I believe he needs to set things straight.
Well, right, but I mean, in all fairness, though, when we were talking about Mexico, and you had brought up, what do you think the biggest problem between the U.S. and Mexico is? You did mention the drug war.
Yeah. If you want to talk about that real fast, I believe that all drugs should be legalized and regulated.
Oh boy! All right, so you think we should have? Well, how would you? Okay, you know what? I shouldn't jump the gun here. Yeah, let's talk about that. We've got a little more time if you've got a few minutes.
That's one of the biggest issues in this country.
Okay, so you tell me, I'll let you explain. You tell me your stance on the legalization or regulation of drugs. What do you think the limit should be? How should it be implemented? You go ahead and take your time, kind of just explain to us.
So obviously I believe the federal prohibition of marijuana should be knocked down from a Schedule 1 drug to completely legal, like something like that of a Schedule 4 or something. In fact, I'm all for just abolishing the schedule system. I'm all for abolishing it. There are known drugs that are beneficial to the human body and the human psyche that are completely illegal and they're not allowed to be studied, like MDMA and psilocybin and LSD and things like that. When used in a proper medical facility and with psychiatrists and stuff, it can have profound effects on the human psyche, and like things like curing depression and things like cluster headaches and things like these that are commonly, like, you can't really just get rid of them. These drugs have been known to have very therapeutic qualities and things like that, but they're just completely illegal. They're Schedule 1 drugs. They're incapable of being used properly.
Okay,
and so I believe that they should be legalized and regulated and used by doctors and facilities that are allowed to use that are investigated and approved by the government.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about legalizing for the sake of medicinal purposes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you're not talking about, hey, I can go to the corner store and buy cocaine.
That's very dangerous. I don't believe that you should be able to do that. But I also believe that just by having cocaine, you shouldn't be treated as a criminal. You should be treated as somebody. Let's just say you're a cocaine addict. Let's just say you shouldn't be treated as a criminal. You should be treated as a patient. You should be. I don't want to say forced, but I think you should have to go to programs, to things that educate people about the dangers of cocaine addiction and things like that, and potentially get people off very harmful drugs like that. And you can see in places like Spain and Portugal where they have legalized drugs, and their drug use goes down and their drug addiction rates go down from the legalization of drugs and the regulation.
You know, I've got to say, it's kind of an interesting side, and I think this was in our first conversation, and you've brought it up a couple times while we've talked about this. This is a little off topic of the drug thing. We'll get back to that. Mm-hmm. You've said this repeatedly, that you think if people were just educated, you know, in relation to the gun issue, in relation to some of Sanders' economic policies, and you know, gun use, drug use, that kind of stuff. You seem to put a lot of faith in the notion that by giving somebody information, their actions will be affected by it. You know, when you look at a typical drug addict, like a meth addict or a heroin addict, I don't think necessarily telling them that heroin or meth is bad is going to have any real impact, nor do I think if somebody wants to create
Oh, right.
Or nor do I think if somebody wants to commit a criminal act, that educating them on how to use a gun properly is going to somehow stop them from using that gun. Why do you?
I'm not saying meth and heroin addicts should be using using guns and be educated about that. I'm not saying that.
No,
at
no.
all.
But what I'm saying is, why do you feel that by giving people the information, they're suddenly going to make different decisions? You don't think that a majority of people?
You don't think that an educated populace is not? You don't think that's a good thing?
I think that people who have vices, people that have problems, people that have addictions, people that want to commit criminal acts aren't going to be affected by the idea that if you educate them that they're wrong, that they're suddenly going to stop committing them. I mean, kind of like look at the idea.
I'm not saying it's going to stop, but it's going to stop those types of problems and things like that. But what it will allow is it will allow prevention of future events and things like that. Because we have a problem. Like it's clear cut. We have a problem with guns and drugs. We need to move forward, start moving forward, and educate the people about it, not just outright labeling people as criminals and things like that. We need to start working towards a constructive society that allows people to better themselves versus just throwing them into a jail cell.
Okay. Well, I draw parallels between this kind of notion, though, and look at something like feminists and the idea of rape culture. They think that you need to just educate every man that exists that raping is bad and that will make rape go away. But,
yeah, but see that's.
But no, but wait. I'll let you respond. That they think that by educating men that rape will go away because there's a rape culture that somehow is glorifying what it is or not addressing what the problem is. But when you look at the data, or when you just use even common fucking sense, telling people not to rape isn't a message they need because they know they know it's bad in the first place. And telling rapists not to rape will have no effect because they want to rape people. So how does educating the populace about guns or drugs or all these other issues, how does that change what we have in place right now?
Because we currently have a situation where all drugs, almost, I don't want to say all drugs, I want to say a lot of the beneficial drugs that we can be using on our citizens today are just completely illegal, and it's just outright, it's not legal to be using them. Versus a situation like trying to educate people about those drugs and things like that. That's a much safer approach to go about. Hey, and so I'm just using a theoretical situation here. So say like you happen to get involved with some shit wherever in the city or whatever, and you get some drugs on you. Well, now you're playing a really dangerous game. I'm just going to use MDMA as an example. Now you're playing a really dangerous game by just by having it, because if you get caught with it, you're going to jail. Let's just say you're trying to use it for therapeutic reasons at home, like you're trying to use it to talk to somebody and get something out of your system or whatever, and try to get that handled. If you get caught, you're going to jail. So what I'm trying to say here is when you try to apply that kind of logic to people who make rape out, you're talking about educating men not to rape and things like that. That's just a position that's totally unreal. Like it's not a position that you can have, because it's not.
Well, isn't it the same argument though? I mean, it's the same idea that if we just get them the information, if we just educate them, then we won't have this problem. And you seem to, one of the things you're arguing when you're talking about drug use is that you seem to refer, or at least imply, that the people that are using drugs are almost all exclusively people who have cancer or something like that. But a lot of drug addicts, I'd say the majority of drug addicts and the majority of drug users aren't using it for medicinal purposes at all. They're using it to get high.
I wouldn't say all, but obviously they always have that potential because they're psychoactive drugs.
Well, right, any drug. I don't know many people that it would engage. I mean, when you look at America's history and you look at the uses that we've used for different medications and drugs, look, cocaine was used medicinally. Sigmund Freud used to give people coke. Sigmund Freud used coke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. That's why I feel like drugs should be legalized. I feel like that's why we should be able to alter our consciousness how we please, because isn't that the whole idea of freedom, of being able to do what you want?
Within limits, within reason. I mean,
But if you're not hurting anybody, and you're just say like, all right, I want to do some coke on the weekend or whatever, and you're not hurting anybody, and you're just doing some coke on the weekend. Why is that illegal? Why is that not allowed?
Oh, okay. So I do some coke on the weekend, and I have a great time, and everything's fine, nothing bad happens, and then I do it next weekend. And by the time I know it, after 3 or 4 months of doing it on the weekends, I'm doing it weekly because it's affected me to the point where I'm now addicted. But I can't support my habit because it costs so damn much money because I'm doing it so much. So what am I going to do to get the money to pay for the drug habit? Oh,
And that's when the law comes in, because like when you start to do illegal activities like robbing people or like hurting people, that's when the government should step in and say, hey, now it's becoming a problem. You need to blah 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 go to jail or do this Narcotics Anonymous program or whatever, you know.
Right, but I mean, drugs, especially drugs like cocaine and certain kind of classes of drugs, have very addictive properties. I mean, wouldn't you be kind of opening up the floodgates?
Then why is nicotine legal? Why is alcohol legal?
Because nicotine doesn't compel me to go out and rob people. Alcohol doesn't. Well, alcohol, you know, we could have arguments about that too. You know, why is alcohol legal and weed isn't? Why is alcohol not illegal and other things are?
That's why I'm just saying, why not just legalize everything across the board and have regulation and proper programs to promote safety?
But that's my point, though. I don't think proper programs to promote safety are going to be enough that if you legalize these substances, that there won't be a negative effect on society as a whole. I think that
that's not true, because there are places like Spain and Portugal, they have legalized all drugs and their addiction rates go down. To say that legalizing drugs would cause more problems is actually the opposite effect.
Okay, let's look at this situation. You keep bringing up Portugal and Spain. All right. I don't know anything about the program, so I'm going to just ask basic questions. And if you don't have the information, that's fine, but I think you'll get the gist of what I'm going at. What is the population size of Portugal and Spain compared to the United States?
That's okay. I understand. I kind of understand where you're going with this.
Wait. What is the demographics? What is the population comprised of? Is it a multiculturally diverse mix of people, or is it a homogenous group? What kind of?
I don't live in Spain, so I wouldn't know the exact.
And I don't know either. But
that's roughly 50 million people in the country. That's a significant amount of people.
Did you say 50 or 15?
50 million. 50.
So it's roughly a sixth or the seventh the size of the U.S.
Right.
As far as population goes. Now, what is the demographic breakdown of that society?
I'd have to look it up for you.
Okay. And when you say that they fully legalized all drugs and made them completely legal to use, is that just across the board? Can I go to the local corner store and pick up some Coke? Or
that's where I wanted to get to. No, that's not exactly what I want. That's not what I meant when I wanted to say legalize all drugs. When I said you should have regulation and programs that promote safety. So like say you need to go to like the doctor on the corner or whatever, and then he administers the cocaine or whatever. That way you're not just able to go and just buy more and more and more and more. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but at least as far, and that's what you're talking about in America, but with Portugal and Spain, did they legalize it across the board? Did they regulate it? Is it only for medicinal purposes, or can I just like go to a gas station and get Coke, or like a liquor store and get, I don't know, a heroin or something?
That I don't know off the top of my head. I just know for a fact that they legalized all drugs and that their addiction rates and their crime rates related to drug-related activity has gone down, and that there are less drug users overall.
But see, you don't know though. I mean, you're telling me this, but then you don't know the details of how they did it. I mean,
I'll pull up the graphs and all the
right, and that's fair enough. But I mean, there is a big difference between saying it's a free society, anybody can get high when they want, and this is only for cancer patients.
No, it's not just for cancer patients.
No, but I mean, you get what I'm saying. If it's only for medicinal use, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Is it available to corner store, or is it under regulation and you specifically can only get it a certain way?
That's what I mean. I don't think they have just corner stores for cocaine and things like that, like potentially dangerous drugs. I don't think that's the point of what they were going after. I think they just wanted to keep people from going to jail for just having cocaine and doing cocaine and things like that. Because just because you like to do drugs doesn't mean you're a criminal. But criminals, like some of the most violent criminals, they like to do drugs.
Okay, I'll give you a second to go ahead and look it up. I'm just going to address the chat real quick. Somebody brought up Jim talk about Trump. We actually did. We talked for, God, I'd say it was an hour?
Close to an hour.
Yeah, a good hour about Trump. So this is the tail end of the show. We've kind of diverged into a separate topic we're going to touch on for maybe another 10, 15 minutes and then close up. So if you're just joining and wondering why we're not talking about Trump, that's why. The conversation's already done. You can skip back an hour and listen to it if you want to.
I just sent you an article to the Scientific American on the Portugal drug decriminalization, and there's a quote in here that says, "Now, instead of being put into prison, addicts are going to treatment centers and they're learning how to control their drug usage or getting off drugs entirely."
Okay.
Reported by Glenn Greenwald, if you know who he is.
All right, so I'm going to read this for chat because I haven't read it, so I'll just read along. You know what I mean? So they can hear what it is. But yeah, he linked to a Scientific American article, Portugal drug decriminalization. This is the article itself. In the face of a growing number of deaths and cases of HIV linked to drug abuse, the Portuguese government in 2001 tried a new tact to handle the problem. It decriminalized the use and possession of heroin, cocaine, marijuana, LSD, and other illicit street drugs. The theory focusing on treatment and prevention instead of jailing users would decrease the number of deaths and infections. 5 years later, the number of deaths from street drug overdoses dropped from 400 to 290 annually, and the number of new HIV cases caused by using dirty needles to inject heroin, cocaine, and other illegal substances plummeted from nearly 1,400 in 2000 to 400 in 2006. Now, instead of being put into prison, addicts are going to treatment centers, and they're learning how to control their drug usage or getting off the drugs entirely. Author Glenn Greenwald, a former New York State constitutional litigator, said during a during a press briefing at Cato last week. Under the Portuguese plan, penalties for people caught dealing and trafficking drugs are unchanged. Dealers are still jailed and subjected to fines depending on the crime, but people caught using or possessions of small amounts, defined as the small amount needed to pay for needed for 10 days of personal use, are brought before what is known as a discussion commission, an administrative body put into law in 2001. Each three-person commission includes at least one lawyer or judge, one healthcare or social worker. The panel has the option of recommending treatment, a small fine, or no sanction. Peter Rutter, a criminologist at the University of Maryland, College Park, says he's skeptical decriminalization was the sole reason drug use slid in Portugal, noting that another factor, especially among young teens, was a global decline in marijuana use. By the same token, he notes that critics were wrong in their dire warnings that decriminalizing drugs would make Lisbon a drug mecca. Drug decriminalization did reach its primary goal in Portugal of reducing the health consequences of drug use, he says, and it did not lead to Lisbon becoming a drug tourist destination. Walter Kemp, a spokesperson for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, says decriminalization in Portugal appears to be working. He adds that the office is putting more emphasis on improving health outcomes, such as reducing needle-borne infections, but that it does not explicitly support decriminalization because it smacks of legalization. Drug legalization removes all criminal penalties for producing, selling, and using drugs. No country has tried it. In contrast, decriminalization as practiced in Portugal eliminates jail time for drug users but maintains criminal penalties for dealers. Spain and Italy have also decriminalized personal use of drugs, and Mexico's president has proposed doing the same. A spokesperson for the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy declined to comment, citing the pending Senate confirmation of the office's new director, former Seattle Police Chief Gil Karliski. But that's the end of it. Yeah. So it looks like there still are penalties in place for people that deal with
drug
drugs.
dealers. Yeah.
And it also says, though, that the councils can recommend fines and jail time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For people that are doing illegal activities and potentially dangerous. Yeah.
Okay, so this is it's 2001 to 2006, so it's a 5-year gap. But the deaths did decrease. There's no doubting that. Mm-hmm. But it's still 290 people dying annually.
It's better than 400.
But it's still 290. It's not like a silver bullet. Now the rate of the rate of infections did drop by about 1,000. It went from 1,400 to 400.
And I personally haven't looked at any recent studies. I imagine that number has dropped even further.
Okay, but when looking at this, they haven't been legalized. So it isn't.
Decriminalization is the step to legalization.
Yeah, but it may be a step. But at the point right now that Portugal is sitting, unless things have changed from this article, and how old is this article? This is 2009. 2009, yeah. So unless things have changed in the last 6 years, it still is not legal. It's only decriminalized to have a certain amount. They said 10 days worth of personal use, and it still is illegal to sell it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good precedent to set.
Okay, but you don't think that there are differences between, say, a Portugal or a Spain or a Mexico and America?
I believe that it would, if you implement those types of policies properly and at the right times and with the proper institutions, it could be done. It can be done very well. We could see very, very good numbers of like addiction rates and deaths going down. Like, because there's a huge heroin problem here in America.
I
That's
personally, yeah, I don't know much about what the drug breakdown is, or the drug of choice, or what the deaths related to certain use of certain substances are. So I'll take your word for it. I don't know, just offhand. But you think that, so what would you support in the U.S. then? Just the decriminalization or legalization?
Uh, well, in order to get to legalization, you don't because you I wouldn't say full legalization day one or whatever. Say like there was a Kyle Gannon presidency or whatever. I wouldn't just flat out say, all right, all drugs are legal. You don't even have to worry about it anymore. I wouldn't do that. I would make sure that programs are implemented to keep not just the individual safe from themselves and being able to purchase drugs and things like that, but as well as other people being as an effect of the decriminalization.
Okay. Here's what I would say, just based on what I've read and kind of talking about this. I think when you look at Portugal, the reason that you haven't seen an increase in deaths and other things is specifically because it's been decriminalized, but not legalized. And what I mean by that is dealers are still getting arrested.
Uh-huh.
So it's not something that you can easily obtain. You still have to go through the same means to get it. And I think the result would be very different if it were more openly available. If you put in some kind of a regulatory system or a legislative solution, or you put it on the corner store, or you had to go through a doctor, I think once it's more widely available, these numbers that they've seen decrease will increase. And they'll increase because more people have access to them.
Are you saying that, or are you reciting that?
No, I'm saying that to you. I said,
Okay.
This is what I think based on what I've read.
Right.
So
Okay.
based on what I've read and kind of our conversation, I think that what we're seeing, the decrease that we've seen, is specifically because it's been decriminalized. But because it's been decriminalized and not legalized, dealers are still getting nailed. So the drug availability is the exact same as it was before. It isn't available to more people, and so you don't have numbers to speculate or compare to. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Here, you have to be hard on the very dangerous drugs like cocaine and heroin, but you have to be allowing of the safer drugs like LSD and MDMA and psilocybin, DMT, all those. They're psychedelic drugs, really, and they're very beneficial to the human body if used properly and in the proper setting. Versus cocaine and something like heroin, where it's just those are literally just to get you high.
Well, Kyle, the function of a drug across the board is to get you high. I mean, people who are smoking pot aren't. No. People smoking pot. Let's cut the bullshit. People smoking pot and shit like that, or doing psychedelics. They're not doing it because they read books better. They're doing it to get fucked up. People.
That's not true.
That is
That's not true.
absolutely is true.
In your opinion, it's true.
Okay. What do you think the majority of people using drugs are doing it for?
Do you not believe that the people who have cancer and people who have autism and stuff that
No, we're
use-
not
that
talking
use
about
marijuana?
that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about decriminalization and legalization, opening up drug use to the public. So we're not talking about cancer patients and autism patients who are a small fraction of the users. We're talking about the people obtaining it illegally right now in Portugal or in the US or wherever that get the drug. Why are they getting the drug? They're not treating cancer or autism with it. What's the purpose of drugs for a drug user?
Well, I believe that they should be allowed to do whatever they want with their body.
That's fine. But what I'm saying, I want to stay on track here. What is the purpose of drug use? Why are people using drugs?
There's various reasons that people use drugs. You have to take the situation into account.
So okay, tell me the various reasons.
Well, do you want me to talk about which particular drug? Like there's different properties for each drug and what they're used for.
Marijuana. Why are people smoking pot?
One, pain relief. Two, obviously it gets you high. And then there's also, are you familiar with cannabidiol and what the cannabinoids are and what they do for your body?
Okay, so we're talking health benefits, pain relief, and we're talking getting high. What do you think the majority of users, the people smoking pot right now at this very moment, are doing it for? What of those three categories? What do you think?
Various reasons. Various reasons.
Kyle, this is a dodge. We can't have a serious conversation about this and then try to act like people are using drugs because they're doing it for various reasons. Hey, listen, I could smoke cigarettes. I could tell you the reason I smoke cigarettes is because I have neurological symptoms and it diminishes them. But that's not true. Sure,
There's no health benefits to smoking cigarettes.
There absolutely are. Nicotine decreases neurological symptoms associated with certain diseases.
Okay.
That's absolutely true.
Okay, I should say then that there are more negative medical effects to smoking cigarettes than there are positive.
Right, but my justification for smoking the cigarette is not that it decreases neurological effects. I just like smoking cigarettes. It gives me a high. The nicotine gives me a high. My body's been trained for that high. Now, we can't have
legal. That's completely legal.
That's fine. I'm not arguing that point. What I'm trying to stick to right now is you cannot tell me. It's just I'm not buying it, Kyle, and I don't think you buy it either. The majority of people that use drugs use it to get high. We can't.
Is that enough to factor into it that it should be illegal? No, that's absolutely not a good enough reason for it to be illegal.
I'm not even getting into that subject. I just want to be clear on this. The reason people use drugs is to get high. Would you agree with that?
That's not the only main.
I'm not saying it's the only main factor that people will use drugs. There are other reasons people would use drugs, but the majority that are smoking dope, because we're using pot for this example, are doing it to get high. They're doing it to watch Ren and Stimpy and laugh and eat some fucking cereal and have a giggle, man. That's why they're smoking pot.
But see, you're also pulling that out of I don't know where. You don't have any You don't have any numbers. You don't have anything to justify that kind of claim.
Well, I could say common sense, but fair enough. What numbers and justification do you have that show me the reason people are smoking pot on the majority are because they want to take care of pain and they have cancer?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
Okay, you're saying that I don't have a number backing up what should be fucking common sense. I said fair enough. What numbers do you have to show that I'm wrong? What numbers do you have that show the majority of people who use drugs use it only for pain relief, medicinal uses, mind expansion?
I would have to look that up off the top of my head because that's not something I know off the top of my head.
So if you don't know it, why would you state it as being factual? I mean, you can argue with me that I'm wrong on this.
I wasn't stating that it was being factual. I was stating that your position of that everybody is doing it just to, or not, I wouldn't say everybody, the people are doing it just to get high. I feel like that's being disingenuous. That's not to the people that use it. You're not giving them a fair shake.
Kyle, okay, all right. Do you? I don't want to get you in trouble. So hypothetically, Kyle, let's say we're living in a hypothetical world.
Okay.
In that hypothetical world, would hypothetical Kyle have ever smoked pot before?
Absolutely.
All right. Why did hypothetical Kyle smoke the pot?
Because I have tendonitis.
Tendonitis. And so when
my knees.
Again, this is hypothetical Kyle. So hypothetical Kyle only smokes pot for tendonitis and no other reason.
I'm not saying that's the only reason.
Okay. When hypothetical Kyle first started smoking pot, it was only for tendonitis. It was introduced to him as a way of managing tendonitis, and there was nothing else going through his head. He didn't think, I'm going to get high, I'm going to have fun. It was just, oh good, thank God I've got pain relief.
That's literally one of the reasons, because I was playing baseball in high school or whatever, and then eventually shot out on me, and then I decided on my own accord that I needed to find a way to have pain relief, so I went to marijuana.
Okay, and again, not you, hypothetical Kyle did.
No, that's literal me.
Okay, Jesus. All right. So, all right. Well, fuck it. Okay, so literal you, and this hypothetical situation, Kyle.
Yeah.
So literal you did that. Now, why go for an illicit substance for pain relief? You could just go to the doctor's office. They give you an X-ray and then medication for it.
Because I don't want to get hooked on painkillers. Opiates and things. They're addictive and they're dangerous.
Okay. What about naproxen? They could have given you something like naproxen. That's not addictive at all, and it's a pain reliever.
I don't disagree with using I don't disagree with using that, but this is a solution and it works for me.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is why would hypothetical Kyle go through the bother of locating marijuana illegally and then using it for pain relief when he could easily and legally have gone to the doctor and gotten a non-narcotic, non-addictive pain reliever?
To say that, are you trying to imply that marijuana is a narcotic or addictive? Or I'm not sure what you're trying to.
I just want to. I'll tell you what I mean after you answer. What I'm asking you is why did hypothetical Kyle go get marijuana rather than go to the doctor legally and get something that isn't addictive, that isn't a narcotic based whatever, I'm just saying because one of your worries was I don't want to go to the doctor and get something that's like a narcotic or like I don't know fucking know like Percocet or something that might be addictive. Okay, fair enough. So why didn't hypothetical Kyle go to the doctor and get naproxen or something else like that is a pain reliever that would work on your tendonitis and that isn't illegal or a problem for you to get?
Sorry, I had to talk to my girlfriend. I feel like I don't want to give my time and my money to the big pharmacy companies. That's one of the reasons. I also believe that putting these I don't want to say experimental chemicals that have side effects from prolonged usage into my body versus marijuana has been used for centuries and thousands of years, and it's known to be very beneficial, and there's no known negative effects from marijuana usage. There's no deaths related with marijuana usage. There's a lot of propaganda against it, but there's not a lot of facts to back it up.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about with the overdose number. I know that there hasn't been a reported case of overdosing on marijuana because you'd need to smoke like fucking 20 pounds. You know what I mean? You'd have to ingest a ridiculous amount of marijuana to die from overdosing on it. However, I don't think it's fair that you necessarily say, I don't like pharmaceutical companies, marijuana's... It's this idea that natural...
I'm not saying that pharmaceutical companies are bad, but for when I can get something that's very practical and easy access instead of paying way out of pocket for pills and things like that, because those do get rather expensive.
Okay, do you grow your own antibiotics? Do you got like melon sitting on the counter when you cut your arm?
No, Jim, I don't.
No, you don't. Well, you go to the doctor to get that, right?
Obviously.
Right. So what was the difference here, though? What if you go to the doctor to get antibiotics, you could grow your own, There are ways to do it. So
obviously, yeah, there are, but it's not practical.
If it was practical, Kyle, if I had a bunch of melons set out on my countertop and I said, "Hey, Kyle, I know you got a really bitchin' infection going on right now. Don't go to the doctor and give those pharmaceutical conglomerates money."
I'm not saying that's what I would do. I would if I had an infection or something, I would go to the doctor. What I'm trying to say is when there's a very easily available practical solution like marijuana, why not take advantage of it? That's my position. That's why I.
And what I'm saying in response to that, and I've enjoyed talking. I've enjoyed talking with you, Kyle. But really, I'm saying it seems like it's more effort to go get drugs illegally than to go to the doctor and say, "Give me a pill for the pain."
But I can just call up a dispensary and they can deliver to me. Is that not better than going to the pharmacy and getting pills?
Well, that's what I'm at. Okay, so you did go to the doctor and he prescribed marijuana?
I went to a doctor, yes. I got my medical card, yes.
Okay, well, see, that clears it up. You made it sound like you went on the street and bought marijuana.
No, sorry. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'm a medical patient.
Okay, see, that's different. See, we're having a different conversation now. You made it sound like...
I probably should have pretexted with that.
Okay, you made it sound like you just went to behind some dark alley and said, "Give me a bag of pot because I don't want naproxen."
No. Okay. I can understand where you're coming from and why you were so against it.
Okay.
No, that's totally not what I was trying to endorse at all.
Okay, that's why I was saying it was a hypothetical situation, Kyle. I didn't want you to say something that might have ramifications later on legally for you.
No.
Okay. Well, setting aside your case, and you know what, I'll take your word for it. You had tendonitis. The doctor said take pot. Pot worked for you. Great. I'm glad it helped with the pain. But I'm going to tell you realistically, and there's not one person watching this, and there's not, I guarantee you, I don't need a fucking survey to tell me this. The majority of people that smoke pot, or the majority of people...
That's not a good way to go about it.
No, Kyle...
You don't need a survey.
Kyle, don't interrupt me. I'll let you respond.
Sure.
What I'm saying is, I don't need a fucking survey. I'm willing to put that out there. Anybody who wants to challenge me on this and show me that I'm wrong, knock yourself out. It's never going to happen. The majority of people that use drugs use them to get high. There may be people that are sick that use them. Great. I'm glad they work for you. If you've got tendonitis or cancer or HIV, if you've got something that's made you really horribly sick and the drugs help you, whether it's marijuana or something else, I'm glad they help you. And I'm not disputing that they help you. but the majority, the average everyday citizen that uses them, is using them to get high. They are not using them to treat a medical condition. They are not using them because they have some malady that is treated better with it than a Tylenol over the counter. I refuse to believe it. I fucking refuse to believe it. Now you can respond, Kyle.
I can just say that I disagree with you. Because I believe that certain drugs should be used properly to nullify certain symptoms.
You're talking about like pot with like pain and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
People use. There's a lot of people that use it just for those exact symptoms.
Were Cheech and Chong using it for those symptoms?
Obviously, you're just pulling out
No, I'm pulling out an example of drug culture. Let's look at the 60s. What were the people in the 60s using drugs for? Tune in, turn on, drop out.
I don't want to say I disagree with that sentiment, but I don't partake in that type of culture myself.
Yes, but what I'm saying, Kyle, is you're the outlier. You're the guy that's statistically, an anomaly. You're the different one. You're that 1 or 2 or 3 or 5% that's like the other people that actually have a physical condition that's helped by drugs, and you don't see it as something you take to get high. The majority, the everyday average user who does, they're doing it to get high. Just like the guy that goes to the bar and drinks alcohol isn't going there because it helps with his fucking insomnia.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I am disagreeing with is that people use drugs for the situations that call for it. You can't just say that people are not want to say all, but the majority of people that smoke marijuana are doing it just to get high. That's not being genuine.
No, that's being not just genuine. That's being fucking factually accurate. What do you imagine? Let me ask you this. What do you imagine? What do you think the breakdown statistically? And I know you don't have the numbers. That's fine. I'm just asking you to guess. Okay. What do you think the breakdown is? How many people, percentage-wise, do you think that smoke? Let's just stick with pot. Smoke pot only for the reasons that you've outlined. They're not doing it, like I said, to get high. What would the percent be?
I would say somewhere in between 50 to 75%.
You are fucking insane, Kyle. Are you serious? You think that 50 to 75% of people smoking pot are smoking it for medicinal uses?
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you meant for recreational usage.
Yeah, I'm saying, I was asking you, because you're like, it's not the majority. But if you're telling me 50 to 75%, then it would be the majority.
But you got to take into the fact that those people. Sorry, I said that wrong. You have to take the fact that those people probably are using marijuana to treat other symptoms as well. You can't just say.
You just said recreational.
Yes, but that doesn't mean they can't use it for other things as well.
Okay, I'm saying, I want you to give me a number of people just using it to get high. What do you think the statistical number just to get high, nothing else?
That's something I can't pinpoint on.
No, I'm asking you to guess. Just throw out a number. I want to know where you're coming from with this. So give me a number, what you perceive as the number, the statistic of people smoking pot just to get high is.
I don't know. I would have to guess somewhere around at least 50%.
Okay.
That's just a guess. I wouldn't even say it's an educated guess. It's just a guess.
I'd say you're way off on that. But even from that standpoint of 50%, you're quibbling with me about a percentile. Not even a percentile, a fraction of a percentile. When I tell you the majority of people smoking pot are smoking it to get high.
I just disagree with that statement.
But I'm using your own numbers. You said 50%. So we're quibbling about a tenth of a fraction of a percent.
Okay, I should just say I don't know at that rate, because I don't.
But that's why I'm asking you to guess. I mean, I don't have like surveys in front of me. I don't have statistics in front of me. So we're just having a conversation. So I'm asking you from your heart, what do you think? I'm asking your own opinion, not survey backed, not fact based.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that's not something I can honestly guess. That's not something I can make an honest estimate about.
So if you can't make an honest estimate about it, how do you know I'm wrong?
How do you know you're right? How do you know you're right?
No. Answer me first. How do you know? How do you know I'm wrong?
I should say this. I don't believe that you're completely wrong, but I don't believe that you're being truthful in your statement. That's saying that most people that are doing it just to get high.
You think I'm intentionally lying to you?
No, I didn't say you're lying. I just think that you don't know all of the facts and all of the data to be able to warrant a statement like that to be true.
And like I said, I put this position out there. So if I'm wrong, and people listening to the stream, people who listen to this later, whatever, if I'm wrong, feel free to post the statistics. But it will be a cold day in hell when you show me a number that says the majority of people smoking pot or doing drugs aren't doing it to get high. That's just not human nature. That's not the reason we use drugs. I'm telling you, I know you may not believe me, Kyle, but I'm telling you on this one, I am right. I am 100% right on this
And
one.
and if you can get the numbers and show it to me, then and prove it, then I will accept it. But until then, I just disagree with that statement.
Okay. All right. So we went a little over time here. We'll leave it with that. It's a friendly disagreement.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thank you for coming on, Kyle, talking about Trump and then, talking about drug use and stuff. We kind of went a little off topic on that, but whatever. It's a stream. There's no set schedule. Again, thank you for coming on. And
It's always nice talking to you, Jim.
Yeah. Have a good weekend, man.
Yep. Oh, wait. If anybody wants to follow me on Twitter, it's at Deganic.
Okay. Go ahead and throw it out there. How do you spell it?
At the Ganic, all one word.
No. How do you spell it? Organic is a weird. Okay.
Yeah. It's GANNOK.
Okay. So if you want to follow Kyle, that's at TheGannok.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a good
Same
weekend.
thing for my YouTube channel too.
Same thing for his YouTube channel too.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
Nice talking to you, Jim.
Yep. Bye. All right. So we went a little overboard on our time. A little longer than I expected to go, but it was an entertaining conversation nonetheless. He brought up his opinions on why he thought Trump was wrong. And again, it's a little vague. Even reading through it, it's really kind of hard to pinpoint what Trump's position on the database thing is. He had the interview with Yahoo News, and then he had the interview with MSNBC. So it's hard to pinpoint down. He didn't really give a straight answer. So it could go one way or the other, really, to be honest with you. And then we had the Rand Paul supporter on earlier, who shared his position on why we should stand with Rand, if you can find him when you're standing, because you'll have to look down. And then talked about drug use. Again, I put this challenge out to anyone. I'm willing to admit if I'm wrong, but I'm going to just say 100%. The majority of people using drugs are using it to get high. There's no other reason that they're using drugs. I'm not discounting the fact that there are people who have illnesses and use them, but the majority that use them are doing so to get high. Just like the majority of people that drink alcohol do so to get drunk. There's always an outlier. There's always a statistical group that does it for a different reason. But common fucking sense. You're not going to sway me unless you've got some really fucking compelling evidence. But we're gonna leave it at that one. Thanks for coming out to the stream. Next week we're going to have oh my god, actually, yeah, let me tell you about next week. I've got somebody scheduled for a libertarian candidate, so I think that'll be interesting. I want to make sure I get his name right. Pull it up here real quick. You know what? I've lost it. Whatever. Next week we've got the Libertarian candidate supporter coming on, and they'll pitch their candidate. If you have a candidate you don't like, you want to condemn a candidate, you can come on just like Kyle did at the end of the show. We'll give you an hour. You can tell me why you disagree with their political standpoints, their platform, and we'll go into depth about that. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening to the Metocast. Have a nice weekend.